morning. Today is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here.
Present.
Thank you. Please note that Councilman Bishop will be delayed. He is taking care of something, but Council Bishop did call and note that he will be delayed. Today we are hearing the budget, and this is ordinance number 117-2026 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to make appropriations and provide current expenses for the daily operation of all municipal departments of the City of Cleveland for the fiscal year from January 1, 2026 until December 31, 2026. And we have at the table with us Mayor Bibb, and we also have all of the directors and several of the chiefs in the audience as well, so thank you, welcome. Just for the council members who are newer and a refresher for some of the council members who have been here for some time, this is the budget. I would ask that everyone keep their questions pertaining to budgetary matters. I know that there's times when people veer into operations. However, I do want to make sure that everyone realizes that the primary objective is to make sure that the funding is in place for any of these departments to operate. So I would ask if everyone focuses on budgetary matters. I am allowing everyone, because this is the budget and it's so important, I would take the chair's prerogative to allow everyone 15 minutes of questioning. However, if you can go shorter than that, that would be nice. However, I do want to make sure that every council member has an opportunity, because we don't always get an opportunity to interact with the mayor and his entire administration. So we want to make sure that we maximize this time as much as possible. That being said, once again, any requests or any follow-up requests that you have, please make sure that it is clear that the staff over to my left and some of your right will actually be taking notes. So if there are follow-up items that we need, I'm asking any chair to make sure that you let the staff know so that we can get any follow-up items that we're looking for. Once again, this is the budget hearing, okay? We have a lot of times that we will have throughout the year to look at the operations. We will have a lot of time to be able to look at the operations of these departments, but today we want to look at staffing and budget, okay? And if there's any questions, please feel free to take one of the staff members and we will go over any processes or procedures with you. At this time, we're here from the administration. Mayor will do his transmittal, and then once the mayor does his transmittal, I will open up the floor for questions from myself and my colleagues. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Council President Griffin and members of City Council. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you for your continued partnership in the work of governing our great city. Over the last 4 years, we have worked through challenges, tough choices, and moments that demanded real leadership. And I'm proud of what we've accomplished collectively together. And I look forward to continuing that work with you as we move through this upcoming budget and the important decisions ahead. I want to thank our CFO, Paul Barrett, and the entire finance team and their diligence and rigor in assembling this year's estimate. Building a responsible budget in an environment like this requires discipline, creativity, and an unwavering focus on the long term, and they've delivered all three. And as always, I want to thank every City of Cleveland employee, because every day in every neighborhood, our team shows up with professionalism and care to keep Cleveland moving forward. And this budget reflects their work and our responsibility to support them. Budgets are moral documents. They reflect what we value, what we protect, and what we choose to invest in. This budget is focused on safer streets, on building a city where all residents can thrive, and on delivering a more modern, more responsive City Hall that works for the people. Since taking office 4 years ago, my administration has prioritized innovation, responsiveness, and fiscal discipline. In our first term, we focused on laying a strong foundation for sustainable growth while protecting Cleveland's financial health. We modernized city operations, streamlining processes to make government faster, clear, and more accessible, improvements to our 301 system, the launch of a new permitting platform, and expanded open data access means residents are now beginning to face fewer hurdles when starting a business, improving their homes, or accessing critical services. We made historic investments in public safety. In 2025, we reached 3-year agreements with our police, fire, and EMS unions, raising wages to attract and retain the skilled professionals our residents rely on. We also developed a plan to restore and improve every police station that minimizes long-term costs, preserves borrowing capacity, and invests in modern equipment and technology to keep our neighborhoods safe. We use federal and private dollars strategically and responsibly. Working in partnership with Council, we allocated $511 million in American Rescue Plan funding to projects that directly benefit our communities. We secured more than $250 million in grants for lakefront development, and we launched a $1.6 billion renovation of Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, an investment in our economy, our connectivity, and our future. And we maintained strong fiscal management, resulting in 6 bond rating upgrades. We ratified multi-year agreements covering more than 80% of city unions and protected our reserves, including a $70.3 million rainy day fund, while preserving borrowing capacity during a period of global economic uncertainty. These achievements were not incidental. They were the result of deliberate, forward-looking planning that balanced immediate needs with long-term prosperity. And that balance matters because today, while today's fiscal environment presents real and growing constraints, from inflation and rising labor costs to uncertainty in federal and state funding, we are meeting this moment in a strong position. And we all know around this table the pressures facing cities: higher costs, tighter resources, and less predictability from outside partners. But we have planned for this. We've built flexibility into our finances and remain disciplined in our approach to service delivery. But despite these pressures, we have built a strong foundation together. These headwinds are real, but they are not new to us, and they are not insurmountable. Because of the work we have done together, we are prepared to navigate uncertainty while continuing to deliver for Cleveland's residents. Initiatives like the Site Readiness Fund for Good Jobs, our Back to Basics neighborhood investments, targeted housing programs to ensure that we are not just maintaining services, but investing in the long-term stability, safety, and growth of our city. So the budget estimate I present today is a continuation of strategic, disciplined, and opportunity-focused governance, built on the lessons and successes of the last 4 years. And this is a budget built to protect our core services, honor our obligations, and keep Cleveland moving forward. The Cleveland era is fundamentally an affordability and governing accountability agenda that will drive the work of our second term. This budget prioritizes investments that lower costs for residents, strengthen neighborhood stability, and grow the local economy so Cleveland can generate sustainable revenue without overburdening our taxpayers. Public safety and strong core services remain the #1 priority always. And this budget reflects our commitment to maintaining strong, reliable service while improving efficiency, accountability, and public trust. We continue to make targeted investments in police, fire, EMS, and emergency response so that the city can meet current service demands and sustain long-term reform and modernization efforts. Budget dollars allocated to police, fire, and EMS have been increased by about $14 million for 2026, and our administration is also actively investing $21 million in modernizing buildings, which is a tangible reflection of our commitment to our division of police and to Clevelanders citywide. And I'm confident that these improvements will strengthen morale, boost retention and recruitment, and further enhance the quality of public safety in our city. This budget also implements strong funding to support modern emergency response models that integrate mental health expertise. There is $400,000 of funding in public safety admin and an estimated $300,000 of funding in the police budget for the co-responder program to send social workers out with officers as they respond to calls. And this work is only as strong as the public servants leading the way. The budget maintains investments in staffing, training, and technology, which are areas that directly impact service delivery. Fire is also currently fully staffed with uniformed police positions and EMS, both over 85% staffed. And our administration is laser focused on filling open positions to ensure the safety of our streets continues to rise. Our industrial revival strategy is about strengthening Cleveland's economic foundation so we can create good jobs, attract new businesses, and drive citywide development that expands our tax base. And this work is grounded in strategic capital investment. We are aligning infrastructure and economic development funding with major catalytic projects, including waterfront planning, airport modernization, and site readiness efforts that positions Cleveland to compete for regional and national investment. And these projects are not isolated initiatives. They are long-term drivers of revenue, stability, and economic growth. And we are already seeing measurable progress. Development activity continues to grow with increased square footage delivered through new projects and construction timelines being met, helping move investment from planning to reality faster and more predictably. State and federal partnerships are helping advance major capital priorities without increasing pressures on the city's operating budget. Cleveland has secured approximately $150 million in external grant funding for lakefront development, while the $1.6 billion airport modernization effort is funded outside of the operating budget. And these resources allow us to move forward with critical infrastructure, site readiness, and transportation improvements while preserving core services and maximizing the impact of local dollars. At the same time, we are strengthening workforce-aligned economic development strategies so that growth translates into real opportunity for Cleveland residents. The realignment of the development cluster in 2026 aims to better streamline processes and minimize bureaucracy, ensuring we deliver more outcomes. And with the restructuring of the Department of Development, formerly the Department of Economic Development, we've added 6 new positions to better support economic development on the neighborhood level. Our incentive strategy is also focused on outcomes and accountability. We are tracking the total value of incentives providing alongside the jobs created and retained, ensuring public investments deliver measurable economic return and strengthen our employment base. In 2025, the city's new shore-to-shore TIF district was enacted, and this provides the city with TIF revenue sources that will be used specifically for lakefront and riverfront development. The Gordon Square and downtown special improvement districts were also renewed, which are expected to bring around $6 million for safety and beautification of these communities for 5 and 7 years. Ultimately, These investments are about long-term fiscal health. By supporting new businesses, expanding industrial capacity, and generating sustainable economic activity, we are building a stronger revenue foundation that helps stabilize future city budgets. Our neighborhood vibrancy strategy is about building an economy that starts on the block level. Because when our neighborhoods are stable, affordable, and supported by strong services, the entire city is stronger. This budget prioritizes housing stability, resident connectivity, and small business growth. These are the fundamentals that increase our housing stock, maintain safe living conditions, and prevent long-term fiscal costs associated with vacancy and blight. Additionally, changes made to the city's borrowing program kept a $68 million liability off Cleveland's books, which is more money for critical capital projects. And we are already seeing real progress on the ground. Home repair dollars continue to be deployed to stabilize owner-occupied housing, and with the Residents First initiative, we are strengthening our ability to respond in real time to the needs of our residents. In 2025, Residents First resulted in a settlement transferring ownership of the Vista and residences of Shaker Square to the beneficial owner, who will invest $20 million into the properties with 100% recapture of city costs. The budget also supports innovative housing approaches. We continue to track measurable outcomes, including new housing units built and additional funding committed to the Cleveland Housing Investment Fund. And while these investments may not come directly from the general fund, they play a critical role in reducing displacement pressures and maintaining affordability citywide. In 2025, we mailed out over 12,000 letters and held 6 in-person outreach events over the fall, which were attended by county staff, building and housing, and aging staff. And these efforts helped bring in nearly $8 million in property tax revenue and kept nearly 5,000 residents from losing their property through tax foreclosure. Through targeted neighborhood economic programs, including the Steelyard TIF grant and the Southeast Side commercial programs, we are supporting small businesses, funding storefront renovations, and helping revitalize neighborhood commercial districts. In 2025, we deployed more than $2.6 million in small business grants, and we look forward to keeping up that momentum this year. You see, ultimately, these investments are about stabilizing neighborhoods today while reducing future costs to the city, ensuring that Cleveland remains a place where residents can afford to stay, businesses can grow, and communities can thrive. We're building a city hall that works faster, smarter, and more efficiently for our residents. This budget continues targeted investments in the digital systems and technology that help us deliver services more quickly and with greater accountability. This includes platforms like Workday, Salesforce, Amplifund, vendor self-service for electronic invoicing and payments, modern building and housing permitting tools, DocuSign, and strengthened cybersecurity protections, many of which are supported through a mix of funding sources beyond the general revenue fund. But it's important to note that these investments are not just about technology. They're about results, because modern systems gives us reliable, real-time data so we can make smarter decisions and distribute resources more equitably across our neighborhoods. Through our urban AI work, we're laying the foundation for stronger data collection and clear performance metrics that help guide how we deploy services and measure outcomes. And we're already seeing great progress on those fronts. The expansion of 311 is improving how residents connect with city services. Modernized permitting and licensing tools are reducing administrative delays, increasing digital applications, and improving customer experience. We continue to also track the total value of construction permits, shorten approval timelines from start to completion, and shift more traffic from in-person visits to accessible online platforms. Internally, our partnership between HR and contracted experts is also helping us operate more efficiently, including identifying healthcare cost savings and improving long-term financial sustainability. Ultimately, these investments in government innovation are about building a more responsive, data-driven city hall that delivers better services, reduces red tape, and ensures every dollar works harder for Cleveland residents. At its core, a budget is discipline on purpose. It's how we turn our shared values into real decisions, what we prioritize, how we invest, and how we ensure Cleveland remains fiscally strong while continuing to move forward. This budget reflects a commitment to responsible stewardship, strategic investment, and delivering real results for residents without losing sight of our long-term financial health. None of this work, as we all know around this table, happens alone. The progress that we've made and the stability that we've maintained is a result of a strong partnership between this administration and this city council. Because even when we bring different perspectives to the table, we all share the same goal: building a safer, stronger, more equitable Cleveland for every neighborhood. So I want to thank this council for your support, your collaboration, your oversight, and your commitment to our residents. Together, we are proving that disciplined budgeting and bold progress can go hand in hand. And I look forward to continuing to work alongside you as we implement this budget and deliver on the priorities Clevelanders expect and deserve. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you. And the way that this is going to go is I will start out asking a couple of questions, and then I will go to the majority leader, and then the majority whip, and then I will take a list from there to go on questions. I see the dean already put his hand up. But I'll start off with my questions, and then once again, majority leader, majority whip, and then I do have the dean. Couple of okay, Councilman Conwell's will. All right, a couple of things, Mayor. You have several priorities that you listed in 2022, and they were updated in 2023. Things like the Southeast Plan, modernizing City Hall, lakefront development, riverfront development. Are these public-facing dashboards or to show what has been done, how much has been spent on some of these items that have been some of the big projects like Sites Fund and other things, so that we can just have an understanding of how much has been spent on those items so far?
I'm not exactly sure if how much money has been spent is on a public-facing dashboard, but I will say we can make Marvin Owens and Todd McNair available during the Department of Development budget presentations. I will say, however, because on the Southeast Side point, because of the $15 million we've deployed thus far on the Southeast Side, we have roughly $100 million of planned investment for the Southeast Side. And then secondly, the Site Readiness Fund already has nearly 400 acres under contract of the target, 1,000 acres under contract that we want to target for redeveloping that brownfield land for shovel-ready job sites. But we can make both Tom and Marvin Owens available to go in more detail about those two specific projects.
Thank you. It'd be good to get updates, because one of the things we're going to need to know is how much more money is going to be needed for some of those projects. I have a ballpark analysis around the lakefront, but some of those other projects be interesting to know how much more is going to be needed in order to do this. 5-year projections. We don't have $512 million and a lot of these will double down with your finance director, but we don't have $512 million to cover gaps. And under the 5-year projection, it says on page 33 that understanding the need for assumptions or givens, should we not budget, or the question is, should we budget at least a minimal increase if the data shows that we have a chronic level in service delivery, because a lot of the 5 years shows that the service levels were static. But in, with some of the assumptions with index, I think the index is going up from, if I'm not mistaken, 2.7. The consumer price index is going up from 2.7 to 3.5. So how did we put a 5-year plan based on flat service delivery? Should we have at least had assumptions that had a slightly increased service delivery?
Yeah, so through the chair to the committee, thank you for the question. So the way that we do our estimates in the budget, we look at historical patterns. We look at what traditionally, like in terms of revenues and expenditures, over the last 20 years or so, how we've grown, and then we adjust for what we see going into the future. Obviously, this budget is focused on 2026. So for those sort of things, we look at what the CPI is, which was about 2.7% for the region, and we look at different other factors and adjust those projections to make them more realistic going forward, and not just based on historical facts. And then we make sure that obviously every dollar that we have is allocated to a useful source, yeah.
The only thing that I would want to make sure that we look at is we just gave increases to all of the safety forces. And if we're projecting that salary and wage increases are estimated to remain flat, is that saying that basically when we come up for the next round of negotiations, which I believe will be in 2 years, that we're not going to have any increase at all?
Through the chair to the committee, so we looked very hard at our revenues and how they were coming in as we were going through union negotiations, and credit to Director Cole and his team for getting over 80% of union contracts completed this year. We would not, as a finance team, have budgeted or agreed to 3% raises for union and non-union employees if we didn't think that we could pay for it, and our projections didn't show that we had coverage for that. We are highly confident and believe that this is the right thing to do, taking care of our people, especially in public safety, and making us more competitive with surrounding cities. That's been an issue for several years, is other cities, other counties poaching our people because the pay is not competitive. So we thought that it was important within our means to take care of our greatest resource, which is our people.
Okay. I still have concerns about it. I will dig down more with some of the directors when we do all of those, but just want to understand. Unfilled positions. I know that we've invested about $10 million in human resources to speed up hiring. How have you looked at metrics or anything to see if that's working? Have we reduced the unfilled positions? And then number 2, have we actually filled the positions that we put in areas like recreation, building and housing, and some of those other places?
I'll start. I think one tangible place where we've seen really good results in us being more efficient in hiring and staffing historically chronic vacant positions has been in public safety. So for example, we've cut the time to hire in police from 18 months to 4 months because of events like our expedited hiring event. I will say, and Matt Cole and Paul can talk more in detail about this, but I will say because we've modernized a lot of issues around vacation, the paid parental leave policies, those investments are working to make the city of Cleveland a more attractive place for talent. Obviously, it's a work in progress. This is a tight labor market, but I do think that we are, I do think we've made a lot of progress over the last 4 years in making this city a more attractable place for good talent.
And through the chair to the committee, you see that in public safety. So fire, we actually had to add positions this year because they were overstaffed. a problem I don't know that we've had before. Also, police, you're seeing the vacancies go down. We believe things like the mayor mentioned, investing in the police stations. No one wants to come to a work environment that's not pleasant, and there's plenty of places around here police can go to. So we thought that modernizing those should be a priority. So we're working on those now and came up with creative financing methods to do that. We've also seen a jump in hiring in EMS. A lot of those were at the end of the year last year, but they're getting close to being fully staffed as well. So we are seeing a lot of progress. There's still a lot of work to be done and a lot of vacancies, obviously, we'd like to fill. But we do believe that we're making progress and doing the things that will attract quality applicants to the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. In page 33, OBM has a long-term financial plan used to identify opportunities for achieving financial stability. How do we make sure that we see that as a copy and we can go over that so that we as a body can determine how the next dollar is going to be spent? And how do you determine where the priorities and next dollars are going to be spent based on the long-term financial plan? We want to make sure that any supplemental ordinances that we provide complement the long-term financial plan that you have in place.
So to the chair, we do that obviously through the projections I outlined a little bit earlier and our methodology. We're always willing to sit down with council members, discuss what long-term goals you all have. I've enjoyed meeting with most of you I've been able to connect with on a one-on-one basis. And I've enjoyed that, listening to what's important to you, and I invite you to come down to my office and we can discuss that. Again, projections are based on the mathematics, based on patterns, based on also adjustments for what we see into the future, so that they're realistic and not overly conservative or overly aggressive. We want to make sure that we're using the dollars efficiently, but not over allocating, in our long-term plans.
Thank you. We were told that the Pittman strategy or the Pittman schedule strategy was going to actually reduce overtime. And I think last year we were at about 22 million in overtime for the police. This year it looks like we're around 25 to 26. Why are we still having a problem with overtime for police, especially since we have been trying to hire in a better position hiring-wise?
To the council president, I'll have Safety Director Drummond and Chief Todd talk more in detail about that. But what I think it's important to note when you look at overtime spending, that is not just taken to effect many of our officers working beyond the regular shifts. That also includes additional investments and spending we're getting from federal and state grants for special violent crime task force reduction details. And so I'll have Chief Todd and Director Drummond go more in detail about that. But sometimes we're allocating funding in the overtime budget to support those details when we see upticks in violent crime and hotspots across the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, and through the chair of the committee, just to add on to that, we have done things to curb the overtime costs. So fire in particular has actually decreased in overtime costs from last year. EMS and police, we still are seeing a growth rate in overtime, but we're doing things to address that, like trying to fill the vacancies is the most important thing. And again, improving the police stations, increasing pay. It's cheaper to get those vacancies filled than it is to pay overtime. So we think that the steps that we're taking will curb that over time. We've also, during union negotiations, we looked at some of the various needs around the city, and we had seasonal workers doing that. So we agreed to take those on as full time, and you'll see that in the budget as well, also to curb overtime costs.
Okay. Grants. It looks like grants. I know we lost the lead safe grant for 3.3 million. That's the latest one. But are there any other state or federal grants that we've lost because of mismanagement or because we didn't fulfill the agreements or anything else? Have we left other grants on the table?
To the council president, first, I want to just take full responsibility for the fact that our administration failed to do a good job in executing the Ohio Department of Development grant around lead. I think it's a case where we really need to examine, I know Director McNair is doing this, we really need to think honestly about certain internal requirements, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense for us to get money out faster, particularly for programs focus around lead. And so we want to work with this body to figure out a long-term solution, because it is unacceptable that we drop the ball on that. Secondly, to my knowledge, there is no other grant where we may be in jeopardy of losing. I know that Chief McNair and the entire team are keeping a watchful eye on the existing HUD grant dollars we have in the Department of Community Development. But I will also say that we collectively, as the administration and council, need to really work together on how we reduce the red tape, reduce bureaucratic hurdles, and ensure we have common sense, thoughtful policies to get money out fast for residents and landlords as it relates specifically around lead.
And to the chair, just to add on to that, as part of the mayor's strategic plan, we've created in this budget 2 positions under OBM for a strategic business unit that will specifically address grants and bring more dollars into the city to make sure we're not leaving any grants on the table. Also, we'll be responsible for compliance and working with the various divisions to make sure that we're maximizing the amount of money we bring in and not leaving anything on the table, to your point.
Okay. Last question, Mayor, then I'll turn over to Majority Leader. This is a question dash comment. Banks that we utilize. I know that you and I met with several banks throughout last year, and I believe somewhat the year before. And I think that the banks in this city are woefully deficient in how much they're investing and putting products and tools. And I'm saying some do better than others. Yeah. But what are we doing to use the banks that we utilize to, one, better, hold them accountable for CRA agreements and other tools that they need in order to invest in our community? And then number 2, have we explored using any African American banks? Like, for example, I know that former Mayor Coleman and former County Commissioner or State Commissioner Boyce have an African American bank. Have we looked at diversifying where we put our money at in order to get a better return on our investment for our community?
Yeah, to the council president, I know that Aaron Miller Tate in the Department of Community Development is leading a lot of our bank on work, which is all about making sure our banks do more than their fair share of investing across all 15 wards in the city of Cleveland. I would say the best case study of what we've seen in terms of real investment in the short term from our banking partners has been the collective work that we've done together around the Housing Investment Fund. We've gotten significant capital from Key Bank and Fifth Third, and we're trying to source more capitals for that $100 million Housing Investment Fund. We're seeing projects already have ribbon cuttings. We just did one in Councilwoman Santana's ward a few months ago. And so that's a really good example of what's possible when we have a proactive strategy to engage our banking partners. And to your second point, I've tasked Paul and his shop in the finance department to really be intentional and thoughtful about bringing on more minority bank partners for bond deals and other debt and equity deals as well. And I'll have Paul talk more about that work. Paul?
Yeah, sure. So to the council president, so we do include anytime we do a bond deal. When you talk about banks, it includes any kind of service. That could mean a variety of things. Bond deals are very beneficial to these banks, and it's business that they strive for and compete for. I will say that we make sure that we have a minority, at least one, if not several, minority veteran-owned or women-owned businesses that are banks or financial institutions that are part of the team when we do those bond deals. We also take several meetings a week with any bank essentially to hear ideas. If there's something that we could be doing better, and we have a competitive approach to how we do this, but we make sure that everybody has a voice, and we're coming up with real solutions to the financial problems by partnering with these institutions.
All right. Mayor, first of all, I just want to say thanks for coming to the table today. As I turn it over to Councilwoman Santana, I just want to help you understand that council's priorities are to see some of these big items and these big ideas come to fruition, or at least have some demonstrable steps in order to becoming a reality, and having some of these other quality of life services that we need police, fire, EMS, streets, recreation department, all of those things, really staffed to a very high quality level because we believe those services are just as important as some of these big ticket items too. With that being said, I will turn it over to Councilwoman Jasmine Santana, and then Councilman Charles Slife, and then Councilman Polisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mayor. So thank you for your remarks. There was a lot said in there, so I kind of want to break it down a little bit. So one of the priorities for Ward 14 is safety. And reviewing feedback from residents from knocking on doors and community meetings, there are 4 items that are top priorities for my residents. That's safety, housing conditions, youth opportunities, and infrastructure. So I'm going to frame my questions around that. So the first one is, you talked a lot about safety, which I'm happy to hear that it's your number 1 priority. I will tell you, in 8 years, we have been able to accomplish a lot, even as you said. You just did a ribbon cutting around housing in my area. But this past couple weeks, I was driving around with my son, and he's like, "Mom, you could rebuild Ward 14 all you want, but if people don't feel safe, then it defeats the purpose," right? And this is how our youth are thinking. So building on the RISE initiative, focus on carjacking and thefts. What action in the budget will improve everyday neighborhood safety, and what measurable results should residents expect by the end of 2026? That's one around safety. And the other one is, do you plan similar coordinated efforts addressing ongoing quality of life concerns, nuisance activities? You know, I hear a lot of speeding, I hear burglary, and just other quality of life where residents really are just moving from our city because they don't feel safe, especially when they have kids.
Yeah, through the council president to the councilwoman, I would say the men and women of our police department have done a remarkable job in reducing violent crime over the last 4 years, but in no way can we ever declare mission accomplished. Let me touch on a couple of things that we've done differently to address nuisance crimes and carjackings and grand theft auto cases across the city. I think first and foremost, we have now moved from an 18-hour to a 24/7 real-time crime center with new technology and new intelligence that allows us to make faster arrests. You saw the quick arrests we made over the weekend for the 2 tragic murders of 2 Lyft drivers. From the work that we've done to make sure that we are curbing street takeovers. Again, it's because we have 5 crime intelligence analysts decked across all 5 police districts, and because we have more intelligence and more cameras and more technologies like license plate readers. We also, at my direction, Chief Todd created a brand new unit which will now be codified inside the Division of Police called STANCE. And this unit is primarily focused just on quality of life, nuisance, and carjacking crimes across the entire city of Cleveland. So they're deployed around the clock to go to hotspots to solve cases faster. And I think because of the work around STANCE, we'll continue to see a decrease. I would also say this, and this is just a call to action to everybody around this table. The men and women of our police department cannot do it alone. If we think public safety is the only solution, we are woefully mistaken. That's why the work that Councilwoman House Jones has led around Tanisha's Law is so important. That's why the work we're trying to do to invest in Youth Opportunities Unlimited is so important, to give young people productive things to do, especially during the summer months when it's easy to get distracted and caught up in criminal activity and violent crime. And so I think collectively we need to continue to figure out other community-based solutions to give more ownership to residents and other stakeholders in the community to be part of the solution. As I've always said, public safety is a group project. And so more money for street watch clubs, more money to invest in Youth Opportunities Unlimited. All those things will play a role, but I'm gonna continue to commend and support the men and women of our police department who are doing a fantastic job of keeping our streets safe.
And I do want to give a shout out to our first and second district commanders who have been doing an
Yep.
amazing job in engaging residents. Also, I mean, blighted houses, right? We know that blight attracts crime. And so this budget reflects fewer dollars and one fewer code enforcement position in building and housing, while complaints and violation notices continue to rise. How will we realistically improve compliance and reduce blight on the ground? And what percentage of violations ultimately, I'm not sure if you know
Yeah.
this, come into compliance?
Well, one, to the council president, to the councilwoman, to your last question, when Sally Martin O'Toole, our director of building and housing, presents, she can give you more detailed numbers about compliance rates related to building and housing and code enforcement. But I will say a couple of things. I think number one, we are going to continue to support the Department of Building and Housing as much as we possibly can, and support them in filling their current vacant positions. And if they exceed their current vacant positions, then we can come back to the table in the middle of the year to explore potentially giving them more resources. I think secondly, as I said and mentioned in my opening remarks, we've seen the tangible impact of the Residents First legislation and what it can do for our city. You think about what we're doing in Shaker Square right now through the support of Councilwoman Gray and the council president. We've been able to hold some very immoral, horrible, horrendous, lazy, disrespectful, out-of-town landlords accountable. And I want to just thank this body for supporting our administration and partnering with us on the passage of Residents First. But we got to continue to do more to hold them accountable. And we will continue to work to beef up housing enforcement and code enforcement. I think the work that we've done around the new legislation around cracking down on property nuisance abatements is actually working, incentivizing landlords to do right through the civil ticket process. And so obviously it takes time for this legislation to manifest, but I think already we're seeing the real near-term impact of what Residents First can mean and what it can do. I would also say I'm very optimistic with our new housing court judge, and I think she'll be a good partner to this administration as we try to beef up housing enforcement across the city.
Thank you. Also, prevention is public safety, right? You talked a little bit about youth opportunities. Last year, council advocated for additional 500,000, I think, for the past 2 years. And so that's something that we will be advocating for. But I would like to know, is there any plans for year-long employment for youth rather than just the summer? I'm not sure if that's something that you've talked about, discussed, but I think 500,000 just adds maybe about 200 more youth. But I get calls constantly where youth want to intern because they want jobs all across the year.
Yeah, through the council president to the councilwoman, this is a big passion of mine, making sure young people get opportunities to intern, get apprenticeships, not just in the summertime, but year-round. It's a lot of the good work that Michelle Pomerantz is leading with Dr. Warren Morgan at CMSD, as well as Michelle Rose at Greater Cleveland Works. We think there is more the private sector can do as well in terms of opening up greater apprenticeship and internship opportunities for young people that are year-round. It's a goal of the Building Brighter Futures plan to ensure that we have access to apprenticeships and internships for every high school in CMSD. Currently, that is not the case. So long-term, that is the goal, and we will continue to work with Michelle Rose's organization and Michelle Pomerantz to ensure that more young people have that exposure, not just in the summertime, but also year-round.
Got it. Thank you. And just one last question. So this year, I know is like colder than any other previous year. So we had a lot of water main breaks. This whole January, I've been driving around. There's a lot of water. Just yesterday, there was floods everywhere. How does this budget move us from emergency response to proactive replacement? And are the coordinating the infrastructure replacement, including lead lines with known flooding and aging system areas, is prioritized in this budget? What relief can residents expect when flooding damages to their home? Which I am going to look at the moral claims, which is not working for our residents. But as far as infrastructure, what are we planning and what is your plan
Through
for
the
it?
council president to the councilwoman, first, I would say the work that Paul Baird and the finance team have led around changing how we invest in capital projects will allow for us to get money out the door faster and to fix our infrastructure faster through our new capital projects investment plan that we've been getting your support around this year. Secondly, I would say Director Martin Keene and his team in public utilities are working around the clock to spend down all the money we receive to replace lead service lines. And I'll have the director go more in detail about his near-term priorities as it relates to water main breaks during his budget presentation later this week.
And I do have one more question, just because something came up with Chief Barrett. So would I anticipate Second District getting some renovation, being rebuilt? Because it is an area that I can't believe that our police officers
Through the
work
council
there.
president, the councilwoman, because of the great work we've done collectively with the administration and council, we have $21 million allocated to modernize all 5 police district buildings. That means new roofs, new HVACs, better heating, and that's going to play a major role in boosting morale and giving our residents and the men and women of our police department more confidence they have a safe, reliable, quality building to work in every single day. We also just released, I believe last week or 2 weeks ago, an RFP to do the same kind of model that we've done with our police stations, with all the fire stations across the city as well too, in terms of getting the savings from energy efficiencies and reinvesting those savings into modernizing those buildings. And so, as you know, we were woefully behind, almost 3 decades in behind in terms of capital improvements for all of our public safety complexes across the city. So we're just trying to catch up and make sure that from fire, police, EMS, that the hard-working men and women of our safety forces have great places to show up and work every single day, and we're trying to catch up as quickly as we can.
Thank you. And you keep saying something that just sparks another
No
question.
worries.
And this is my last question, Mr. Chair, I promise. Through the chair of the mayor, you talk about modernizing, City Hall. You can't do that without multilingual services. So
Absolutely.
what are we doing to improve our, access to multi-languages for the residents of City
Yeah,
of Cleveland?
well, we currently have a contract with a third-party provider as well as Global Cleveland to have translation services when we need it. This is something that will continue to be a work in progress for the administration. As you know, we brought on a new leader, and Tiffany Scruggs, who's going to lead a lot of this work, and we look forward to working with her as we continue to make sure that we are showing up to every resident in our city and making sure they can access city services regardless of any language barriers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Charles Slife, then Palencic, Conwell Harsh.
Thank you, Council President, and good morning, Mayor. And so my order of events is I'm gonna make some comments and then maybe land with one question. Now, I do have throughout the coming days a variety of specific questions for all the directors, but I'll admit that the question I have for you might be a bit more abstract, but I'll let that dangle for a second. So in your remarks, you described the budget in a couple different ways: a responsible budget, a disciplined budget, and budgets as moral documents. For what it's worth, I personally take to the first 2 descriptions, responsible and disciplined, and I'll explain why in a second. But over the past couple weeks, as an example, during our hearings about your proposed closure of Burke Airport, which I found these hearings to be very productive, and I want to thank you and especially Jess Trevisano for all the partnership in that. I had, I suppose, the audacity to use as an analogy if changing Burke Airport would trickle down to city services and allow them to benefit. And I use leaf pickup specifically as an example. And our friends at the Plain Dealer, I suppose, found that to be a little small-minded and a failure to see the big picture. And I bring this up because, not merely because all the snow melted and now we can see the leaves that didn't get picked up in the fall, this isn't an indictment of anybody. This is an acknowledgement of the struggle we have within our budget, that when we start focusing on operations, I think we tend to get towards operations because we have a city that requires, frankly, more revenue than we have to provide the sorts of city services that we want. And in making an analogy about leaf pickup, I think the real question is, what major decisions are we making in this building, and how do they meet the daily lives of Clevelanders in one way or the other? It's an analogy. Maybe they don't understand an analogy, but they understand a budget. That's why they forced out all their union reporters. But I bring this up because service delivery, we all agree, is a key priority and something that I think leaves something to be desired for residents of the city of Cleveland. And we can talk about routine city services, but then when you layer on all of the challenges we have in Cleveland that other communities don't, we have to pave streets, we have to maintain parks, but we also have to deal with systemic poverty, structural racism, things that other communities in our region and our country don't. And I worry that when we say things like the budget is a moral document, which in one way could be interpreted as the budget, it is moral to live within your means and do the responsible thing. I worry sometimes that people interpret it as the budget is our effort to maybe live out the Sermon on the Mount, and there's a lot of things that we do in our budget that improve the lives of people who need help, but a lot of it is just kind of routine government. Blessed be the airport, it gets us to Vegas. Like, that's not really our morality. That's just something that we have to do within the budget in order to maintain operations as we have, and hopefully pushing it forward. So my goal this year, and I've mentioned this before, has been to think about what we could achieve if we had more revenue. And I'm bringing in a summer intern, and I want to start to, and I hope that there could be a partnership of thinking through how we could define advances to city services and try to quantify that. But the reason I want to ask you an abstract question is because I also think there's a tendency within us to ask your directors and commissioners sort of an unfair question. It would be unfair for me to ask a specific commissioner or director, is this the budget you need to get the job done? When I think I am asking, is this going to meet the expectations I hear from residents? And there's a pecking order. They work for you, and I don't think anyone's going to come to this table and say, well, I really wanted to triple the budget, but the mayor said no. That's not a great way to make sure you make your next mortgage payment. But I do think it's maybe a fair question to kind of put towards you. So I guess my abstract question is, imagine a world where we had 100 million additional dollars recurring, not an ARPA type thing. We just have $100 million more to play with. Could you give maybe 3 areas that jump off the page where you think we could most strategically put that theoretical money towards? I think it'd be a useful exercise in just thinking, acknowledging where we are trying very hard, what some of our limitations are, and how we could make improvements if we were to have additional revenue, so that we can begin thinking through on our side how to get us towards that.
I would say first would be public safety and violence prevention as an all-inclusive bucket. The second would be giving particularly residents who need to age in place in the city of Cleveland property tax relief to further prevent displacement. I just was briefed on a great model in Atlanta, and they have a fantastic anti-displacement initiative where the city of Atlanta worked with Tyler Perry to essentially write off property taxes for seniors so they can age in place and not be displaced as Atlanta continues to grow. And the last one, which is a $2 billion problem in Cleveland, is home repair, home rehab. If I could write a blank check for anything, it would be for home repair, home rehab, because that would really just change the trajectory of every neighborhood in the city and be a game changer long term.
Thank you. I don't know about my colleagues, but that's useful for me to hear those goals. And we focus a lot on the all of those can be baked into some of the established priorities that are, within your budget, like the lakefront or the southeast side and modernizing City Hall. But I think that I could certainly add to that list. I'm sure that others could add or maybe subtract from that list in their own way. But I think it's useful for me to understand where you see either areas of improvement or areas of need so that we can begin to strategize on how to get towards that instead of having to live in this sort of recurring, understandably disciplined, austere budgetary conversation simply because by law we must have a balanced operational budget.
Through the council president, to the councilman, I will say this though, and I may have been different than prior administrations, but I think given where we were in 2022 and either the challenges the city and the region have had even before the pandemic, my hypothesis has been for Cleveland to actually grow and for us to have a growing tax base, more revenue, and a stabilized population loss, that we had to have an administration when I was elected of being able to, have the, fiscal discipline, but also make some long-term strategic bets, not in a risk-oriented way, but in a calculated way, so we can grow and grow the pie. Because in my humble opinion, managing decline for the last 2 decades hasn't gotten us anywhere. And the cities that have won, as we've seen this massive shift in our global economy, have been the cities that made those strategic, calculated choices around growth. And I think this is kind of that period for Cleveland. And hopefully I'm right in 10 to 15 years. So we can have the additional revenue to spend more money on leaf pickup and home repair, home rehab, and public safety and violence prevention, right? So, as the executive and the way that I view the world, we have to find a way to do both.
Very understandable, and I'm also hopeful for that. And I'll just wrap by saying that my goal in this, again, is not to be incendiary or confrontational, but if the goal is to grow the pie, to have a more forward, transparent conversation about what we'd like to achieve when that occurs, just simply because I worry that there's so much skepticism out there right now for government across all levels, and if it's I think easy and expected for people to maybe accuse us of having our heads in the sand and not understanding what the scale of the problem is, and a lot of people don't have maybe the willingness to accept that we are constrained by our budget. But I think by being able to define what the problem is a courtesy to those whom we serve and allows us to get on on the path we want to be on. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Mike Polisic, Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, Mayor, and your team. Always good to have you guys at the table. I'm going to mention a few things, and then I'll let you care to comment. I appreciate that. One of the things that's so critical about the budget hearings for us in council, this is our opportunity to really get an overview of each department and each division. And that's the critical time for all of us. I learned that when I first came in the door here. It was a very unique time for me, and I learned a great deal. One thing is important, though, whether it be good news, bad news, or indifferent news, that it be the straight and honest news at the table. And I say that because at just a recent meeting we had to go over the VAPAC, a former director of Building and Housing indicated at that meeting that, he lied at the table, okay? And I knew he was lying, okay? I knew as soon as whatever he said, I knew he was lying directly. So it's important for your team that comes to this table that whether it's indifferent news, bad news, whatever, it's the straight news. That's what I want to hear over the course of this period of time. I want to hear reality that we're confronted with. So let me just touch on a few things. Going over the budget, last year, 2025, we hit an all-time record for police overtime. All-time record in history of the city. It's my observation that the classes that we're putting on, and I want to just say I want to commend you and your team because you have substantially increased the number of police officers, cadets, but we've got to figure out how to do a better job of even making those classes larger. We budgeted 180 positions last year, 2025 for the Division of Police, and we didn't get to that number. I'm concerned about purchasing and procurement, how that is being carried out, and when we get into that portion, we're going to do that. I looked at the $500,000 for signage, new signage here in the hallways of City Hall and throughout the building. Yet we have a sign department. We have a division of signs. I don't understand how that kind of money was being spent, and I say that because, quite personally, I was asked to purchase a new refrigerator and some workout equipment at the Collinwood Recreation Center because the refrigerator gave up after God knows how many years, and they had a little refrigerator, like a refrigerator you have in your house in the kitchen there. And I said, you can't service the kids there, especially the summer programs. So I said, I'll buy the refrigerator. When it came back, the refrigerator and two pieces of workout equipment, it was just under $50,000. I said, what is that refrigerator made out of? Silver? Who bought this thing? How did we pay for this? So I'm going to be asking questions as it pertains to procurement, how we wind up spending, again, $500,000 for signs in the hallways, how we spend some of the other things we did for equipment around here. I don't get it. I experienced that firsthand myself. The lead program, I commend you for being upfront about what took place there. Not too many people would admit that it was a not well administered program, but it's a critical program in our city, and we have to figure out how to get it fixed because we're dealing with more and more homes in our city due to their age that are dealing with this problem. The corporate community. You've indicated in the course of your discussion, your engagement here and there. I would be hard-pressed today, sitting at this table, to name 5, quote, corporate leaders in this city. I would be hard-pressed that have stepped up to the plate to help the city of Cleveland versus what we've seen in the past, especially under the Voinovich and White administration. This is of great concern to me because when I look at the poverty level, I look at the issues that we're confronted with in our neighborhoods, it seems like the corporate community has been basically missing in action in our city. And that's a challenge not only for you, but for all of us around this table to figure out how do we get the message across to the corporate community that they have to take a more aggressive and active role in our city. The concern about CPP, the system needs to be upgraded. Too many outages on the west side and east side. So I'm greatly concerned about that. Facilities, you've touched about the 5 police districts. We've been waiting for a facilities utilization plan. I've been hearing about it for God knows how long. I don't know where the plan's at as it pertains to all of our city buildings, their condition. So again, I'm asking, where is that plan? I mentioned about police hiring has to improve, but I also want to say this. I've enjoyed a working relationship with your directors and your team. Do we always agree? No, but it's been cordial. It's been a working environment, and again, I need to say that, and I want to just, again, commend all of them because all of the challenges that were confronted today, and most recently, I just want to say to Director Laird for, I thought, trying to do the best job he and his team could do with this terrible winter we had. I think they did the best job they could do. And again, I could go down all the departments and divisions, the directors and chiefs for the work that they've done, and I appreciate that. This is a unique budget because it comes right on the heels of a councilmatic and mayoral election. So like most members, I walked, as I always do, but even more so in an election, and I went out there and I walked and I listened to people. And I attribute it to being elected 14 times, listening to people, what they have to say. So this is what I heard. Councilwoman Santana, I'll mention a few of it. Number one complaint I get into my office every day is housing code enforcement, or the lack of it. The LLCs that are descending upon our neighborhoods, just buying up everything, coming in with cash, buying them homes. Police, obviously, but lack of traffic enforcement, virtually no traffic enforcement in our neighborhoods. Support, you touch on support for housing programs, repair programs. When I was walking, when you're in a car, you're driving, and it's one thing, you're looking ahead. But when you're walking and you're looking up, I couldn't believe the number of houses that had blue tarps on them. We didn't have a hurricane. We didn't have a tsunami. People, they can't fix their roofs. They got blue tarps on there. You got garages that are leaning. You got front porch. I'm out on the street south of Euclid Avenue. Mailman stops me as I'm walking. He says, I introduced myself to him. He said, gave me an address. He said, be careful when you go over that house. You'll fall through the porch if you're not careful. That's how bad this front porch was at his house. It was an elderly lady living there. So I see this movement or this charge in some cases, in some neighborhoods, to build apartments. What my residents want, they want programs to repair homes, and they want to see new single-family affordable homes constructed. And we've been doing that with Habitat. The nuisance law. They want the nuisance law enforced where we're having the neighbors from hell who don't respect the street, especially where we have absentee landlords. And then, in general, quality of life issues. But the other thing I heard repeatedly, and you touched on it in the course of your presentation, Mayor, because you talked about shore decor, you talked about the lakefront plan, the TIF, is there's a perception growing in the neighborhoods that the focus is on the lakefront, downtown lakefront, not the east side lakefront, not the west side lakefront, but it's the downtown lakefront. So I'm trying to understand what the game plan is as it pertains to your lakefront vision and how that relates to our neighborhoods, how it really relates to our neighborhood. And I also want to say, I'm trying to figure out what the game plan is for the east side from 55th Street East, because I don't see a game plan from 55th East. We've heard about a game plan on the southeast side, but I don't see one on the northeast side from 55th East. And just the final, you mentioned in, of course, your presentation about you wish to stabilize neighborhoods. Mayor, we're confronted with 18 schools being closed, 4 on the northeast side of the city, on top of the 29 that have already been closed on the east side. When we talk about the issues that we're confronted with, if we don't educate, we incarcerate. If we don't educate, we incarcerate. That's what I see on the east side. I don't see opportunities. I see schools that are dysfunctional, those are the left. You appoint the school board who appoints Dr. Morgan. And let me be very blunt. I don't believe Dr. Morgan understands the east side of the city one iota. They would not have stripped the schools like they did, not just under him, but under a previous CEO. And here I am coming into New Ward 10. Now I'm dealing with schools that are being closed. And not only the schools being closed, but we are losing the after-school program in the schools, the after-school programs at the buildings that are being closed. And 6 precincts, voting precincts, are being eliminated with no place to place the voting locations. So not only is it about, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, about school, about education, now it's about what many people are looking at, voter suppression on the east side in our neighborhood. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking forward to working with you and your team, as I always have. We don't always agree. My position is We can disagree today and tomorrow be agreeable. The focus is our neighborhoods. I need to really see a game plan for the east side, the northeast side, because I'm as serious as a heart attack. I don't have any agendas. I came in a councilman, I'm going out a councilman. I want to see a game plan for the northeast side of the city. I look at what's happening. We're here today, 15 council people. Glenville lost 22% of its population in less than 10 years, Glenville neighborhood. We got to have a real game plan here, a game plan that is above and beyond where the Brown Stadium is and the lakefront. We got to have a game plan here. And I'm prepared to work with you to develop that game plan on the northeast side, work with my honorable colleagues here. And I have to say this, council does not get enough credit for what this body does every day. And I can tell you as a senior member, this body is at the forefront. We're the pin cushions. We take the calls every day. We deal with the issues as best as we can. We're not appreciated. Every time, especially a certain news outlet gets a chance, a print outlet, to kick the body, they do it because they don't understand. They can't relate because none of them live in a city. Okay? And none of them live in a city. So I'm here to work with you, Mr. Mayor, and your team. I appreciate the working relationship, but we got work to do. And I'm concerned about the east side. I'm concerned about the lack of education, the hits we're going to take on the east side, and a lack of a plan from what I can see. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the council president to the councilman, I'll try to hit on as many topics as I can from your comments. First, I want to just talk about this dichotomy that I think continues to unfortunately dominate how we think about governing and progress in Cleveland, and that is the ancient old argument of downtown versus the neighborhoods. And I think it continues to be a zero-sum game if we have that mindset, because as many of you around this table know, nearly a majority of all the revenue we get as a city to fund everything we need to get done in our neighborhoods is funded by the core, right? Our general downtown urban core central business district. And so for us to make sure we have more money to hire more police, more money for home repair and home rehab, more money to fix potholes and water main breaks, we need to have a vibrant downtown jobs base. And I believe that the vision that we've outlined with support of this body, with our shore to core to shore TIF district to leverage roughly $5 billion of investment to make Cleveland a two-waterfront city, will allow us to have more revenue and more resources to grow our region, grow our city, grow our population, and give us the resources that we need to take care of the basics, but also invest in a prosperity agenda for our neighborhoods. Councilman, you talked about us not having a game plan for your part of the city, but I would respectfully disagree. We worked with you and Councilman Hairston to launch the Site Readiness Fund for Good Jobs, and quite frankly, a majority of the largest sites for that Site Readiness Fund are located in the northeast part of Cleveland. You take, in fact, the old Acme site. We work with you to support the expansion of the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. Again, a game changer for the northeast part of the city. We work with you to bring a brand new company to your part of the city, in Cantonese Foods. Is bringing hundreds of jobs they moved to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. Their production facility is in Collinwood, and we work with you to get that deal done. I would also say that organizations like St. Clair, Superior are starting to build a very comprehensive game plan for 55th and below. And one of the things that we have to work on as a city, both with council and the administration, is we need to ensure that we have effective, vibrant CDCs, particularly on the east side, because we know that having a high quality CDC is a great driver to enable growth and broad-based neighborhood prosperity in our neighborhoods. And quite frankly, I'm very disappointed at the discrepancy that I see between the west side and the east side in terms of the quality of CDCs, and it's important we work on that. To your earlier point about CMSD, look, I wish we didn't lose 50% of our student population since the early 2000s. I wish that prior administrations and prior leaders at CMSD were not afraid to make hard choices about the future of the footprint at CMSD. But unfortunately, that is not the reality that I live in or the reality that you all live in. We've lost 50% of our population of students, hence why we have moved forward with the Building Brighter Futures plan, which will allow us to have more high-quality high schools, more high-quality neighborhood-based schools, and gives us additional resources so we can go from having islands of excellence in our school district to having a system of excellence in our school district. And long-term, I think it's gonna pay dividends to stabilize our population and keep families in the city of Cleveland. So when you get married and have children, you aren't going to the suburbs. You're staying in the core city because you have good neighborhood schools. And I will say, my administration alongside CMSD are gonna work very closely with this body and this council who have buildings affected by the Building Brighter Futures plan to ensure that those assets, those buildings can be leveraged as good community and economic development in your neighborhoods. And as you know, Councilman Polinsik and Councilman Conwell, we are planning for a brand new high school with another large anchor tenant supporting that high school in 2028 in the Collinwood, Glenville neighborhood, which is gonna be a boon to that part of the city. So we do have a game plan. It's a very focused game plan, and we look forward to your continued partnership around that. And then two more things before I wrap up. One, we are blessed, both as the administration and as council, to work in the people's house. This is the people's house. This building belongs to the taxpayers of the city. This chair belongs to the taxpayers of this city. And our residents deserve the absolute best. Our residents deserve to have a city hall that they can be proud of. As you know, when I got here 4 years ago, the roof was caving in, leaks and pipes were bursting, things were falling apart. And on my watch, I wanted to make sure that the residents of the city had a building and a space and facilities that they could be proud of. And we've done that in a responsible way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have Councilman Kevin Conwell, then Councilman Chris Harsh, and then Councilman Joseph Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
To the chair. I want to thank some of your people, Sherry Ullery, Angela Woodson, Eugenia Cash, and this other person, I don't know her, named Tiffany.
Brooks.
Yeah, is she here? I've been hearing her name a lot, and the reason I want to thank them is because what happened last Monday, 2 Mondays ago, when a young lady came to the podium and she was talking about her issues and concerns with her 11-year-old son and her 7-year-old son. And when they come to the microphone and talk about their issues and concerns, we write it down. But now we're going to start having some healthcare providers there. And it was your people that helped push it. The reason I know, because I went behind it, so I can make phone calls to invite Murders Taylor there. But when I talked with Lavelle Custard, he said, you guys were already on it to make sure that someone is there so people are not just talking at the table. The outcome measures is very, very important to me. So I want to thank you and your administration for moving forward on that, and I was very, very happy. Speaking of measurable outcomes, I like the part you mentioned here also, Mr. Mayor. We could use this book as a policy guide. You know, I've been using it even before you arrived when we implemented 311. Because you could use 311 also in your budgeting. Because when people call from the east side or the west side or the southeast side, you tabulate it up and then you see where majority of the resources need to be spent from 311, and you can correlate it with the book. Also, the nuisance law came out of this book, as well as reverse 911. So it is a good policy guide. Getting to that point, what I don't understand, in the budget, when we go to the different departments, we should, through the chair, have a strategic plan there in front of every single, so you can correlate your strategic plan with the budget. That's where you know what direction you're moving in, you know, through the chair to the Mr. Mayor, MBA. Sir, I'm waiting on you to respond to that strategic plan, because we pushed one
Yeah.
3 years ago through the chair, remember?
Yeah, so through the council president, through to the councilman. As you know, we do have a 10-year strategic plan. We're working to execute that 10-year plan as we speak. Many of the reforms outlined in this budget and outlined in my opening comments are a reflection of that said strategic plan. And in next year's budget, if you guys would like a summary or a primer of that plan and how it aligns to the budget, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you very much, because I was looking at it. And then here's the other, in the budget, in each department, they should have footnotes sometime. For example, you talk about safety, we talk about training dollars, we talk about attrition is in there, and if we could footnote, because sometimes budgets is a moving part. A lot of times when we're finished, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, I go down and visit. You always keep your door open to me, Mr. Gentile. I'll go down and talk with him sometime because I need to get some clarity. But if we had the footnotes or the head notes in the budget, that would be great. Speaking about measurable outcomes and compliance, I was very disappointed 2 weeks ago, Mr. Chair. You know, this lead piece, I was disappointed. I went home, kicking the chairs, talking about it even with the wife. We were discussing lead. You know, we've been trying to get this thing right for years and years and years. And to lose, I don't like losing money. When you have measurable outcomes, if we're measuring things through the chair to the mayor, why we wait until they bring it to me to say, here's where we're at? You know, you having strategy reviews before you get to the chair, any one of our chairs, and you bring it and you say we lost the grant. I was highly disappointed to the chair, to the mayor. So what are we doing? How are we auditing the other lead grants to make sure we never ever get to this point again, so that our residents, our citizens, our board of directors, our bosses will get great outcomes about this lead program, through the chair to the mayor?
Through the council president to the councilman, as I said in my prior comments, one, I take full responsibility for the fact that we failed to meet the moment and execute that grant effectively. And talking to Chief McNair and Dr. Margolius and members of my staff, it seems as if we imposed our own too rigorous regulations and red tape about how we deploy that money.
That $15,000.
Yeah, and so we have to, I think outside the box, and really get clear about how we make the easy things easy for issues of consequence, like getting grant dollars out faster to landlords and homeowners to abate lead in the city. And so over the next several weeks, you'll be hearing more from me and Chief McNair and Dr. Margolius about our new game plan. I want to work with you as chair of the Health Committee.
Yes.
To make some changes to the lead law. I know Dr. Margolius has already, I think, talked to you about what those changes could entail. I think former Councilwoman Rebecca Moore had some great ideas as well that we should take a look at in terms of how we improve the lead law. And to Councilman Slive's point, we need to really interrogate whether or not having all these programs inside the big bureaucracy of City Hall actually makes sense. We may come to the determination that it doesn't make sense.
I can see that.
You know, get the money out of City Hall, put it in a space where we can get money out faster and allow us to abate lead more quickly. And so all those things should be on the table for real self-examination, for real interrogation. but we can't keep doing business as usual and think we're gonna, solve our lead paint poisoning problem. I will say we have made some good strides together. We've seen a decline
some good strides,
in
that's
the
it.
number of children that have been poisoned by lead over the last several years. But we got more work to do as a government, both the council and the administration.
You know what, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, we still have to have compliance when we give it to other key stakeholders. Because sometimes I've seen we give money to funding streams to other stakeholders.
Yeah, I agree.
And they don't execute.
Agreed. I agree.
That compliance must be first thing first. Through the chair, Dr. David Margolius, he's real good. Sometimes when I can't sleep at night about issues and concerns, I might call him at 2 a.m. in the morning to talk with him about certain things. And I got to get it done. I don't like losing money. That's $3.2 million that we lost, and we can't get it back. But I'm glad we're putting systems in place, and that's where I'm at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just for the record, one of the things that we did, and I would encourage you to bring the lead safe Cleveland committee to the table, Councilman, because part of what we tried to do is put more money into that external group in order to do it. And you're right, need to see how they're executing. So I would encourage you to reach out to former Housing Director Ayanna Blue Donald, because she can give you an update as well.
Oh, she's good. You know what, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you. When you chaired it, you helped to champion, Chairman Griffin, this lead safe issue. So I want to thank you for that. However, we are going to bring them back to the table in April. Hopefully, we're going to look at who the mayor hired as a CDC director and see what kind of systems do they have in place.
Outstanding. Thank you, Councilman.
All right, thank you.
I have Councilman Harsh, Councilman Joseph Jones, Hudson, Starr, House Jones, Davis, Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to you, and good morning to all of our guests. Mr. Mayor, good to see you. I want to sort of just stay at the 30,000-foot level for as long as I can this morning. And I'm looking at page 35 of the budget book, which is the long-term projections going into 2031 for expense and revenue forecast. I know Council President kind of started here, but I want to go back to this. I didn't run for office because I'm an expert in municipal finance. So a lot of the work done at this table is a learning curve, I think, for a lot of us. And I'm curious through the chair, because I've seen this every single year. This is my 5th round with a budget. Every year, obviously, expenses are greater than revenue. But every year, we also project a widening revenue to expense gap. So this year, we're closing a 90 million gap, 89, I think, specifically. But then next year, it's projected to be a $107 million gap. And then it falls from there. In 2008, it's 106 million. In 2029, it's 100 million. In 2030, we get below 100 million at a $96 million gap. And through the chair, I'm wondering if the director could just explain to me why we constantly project a larger gap for the following year, and then that gap tails off over the course of 5 years. It seems that that trend is in every single budget book.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, this year, I just want to make it clear that $89 million is being used for capital, as we've explained. So that's not a true, the budget is balanced. I just want to be clear about that. So you will see expenditures are higher than revenues by the 89 million, but that's because we're allocating the carryover.
Correct. So through the chair, we use carryover, but why does the carryover why does the gap become bigger next year?
So through the chair to the councilman, again, these are all projections based on historical numbers that we use, and then we adjust for what we think is going to happen in the future.
So through the chair, why do we think that it's going to get bigger?
So through the chair to the councilman, I'm not sure, are you talking about the gap between revenues and expenditures? Or
Correct. On page 35, the 2027 estimate is that we will raise 831 million and spend 938, which is a $107 million difference. And then in the following year, it's 849 to 953, which is 106. It goes down from there. And this is in every single budget book. Like every single year we do this. And I'm just curious why we calculate the following year to have an immediately bigger gap and then it falls. I'm trying to understand this.
To the chair, the council person, when we do these projections, we're really conservative on the revenue because we want to overestimate revenue, and we're less conservative on the expenses because we kind of use consumer price index, and and when you go out and do that, you're going to get a bigger gap each year. Now, the reason, like the director mentioned, the reason these are really big, again, is because if you look at the capital line, we've kept the 92 million every year. So if you take that out, yes, there's still a deficit. It's more about conservative revenue estimation and more realistic expenditure estimation, because we don't want to overestimate revenues and kind of underestimate expenses.
Okay.
Through the chair to the councilman, just to reiterate what Mr. Gentile said, we need to make sure that we can pay for with the revenues that we expect to get. We can pay for everything that we need to pay for around the city to the extent that we budget. So we don't want to be overly aggressive with revenues. We never want to do that. We want to make sure that if we're going to err on any side, it's the side of caution on those. And the side of caution is also making sure that we're realistic and maybe budgeting for unforeseen circumstances and expenditures.
So through the chair, is the idea here basically a worst case scenario? Presume that things are almost as bad as they could be, and what would it look like then?
Through the chair to the councilman, I wouldn't classify it as worst case scenario, because that means we're not allocating all of our resources the way that we should. I think it's more being realistically conservative and making sure that we can pay for what we need to pay for.
Right. So thank you. Through the chair, I do have questions for the mayor as well. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that you're here.
They're smarter than me anyway.
So I struggle with this because, Mr. Chair, every single year, city expenses grow up faster than city revenue. And we have this constant problem where every year we look in every department. When we get into this throughout the next course of the week, we see that every department has expenses rising faster than revenue for that department, at least for our departments that generate some kind of revenue. And it was explained to me once that the only two neighborhoods in all of Cleveland that actually make money, that actually generate more revenue than they cost, are downtown and the Circle, because they're job hubs. They're, Cleveland Clinic, Key Bank, all of our employment works here. And so it seems to be that the only way to raise revenue is through either more jobs or more people paying taxes. And I'm curious how we translate a plan for growth into our downtown development. I recognize downtown as the breadbasket for Cleveland, but I'm looking at the developments that are happening, and when we lose the Browns, that's a loss in revenue and generated revenue from people that attend games. When we lose the courthouse, that's a loss of jobs, and that $1 billion rebuild goes to Garfield, not Cleveland. The Councilman Slice's been talking about Burke and what happens if we change it. I can actually look anybody in the eye right now and say that we lose $1 million a year on Burke and it doesn't cost us anything because it's an enterprise fund and the airlines pay for it. It's thrown into the bucket with Hopkins. But I'm curious, I know that Shore to Core to Shore as a TIF district will create revenue to invest in infrastructure, but I'm curious, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, what specifically are we doing to bring jobs and people as a result of this? How does this downtown development focus translate into more jobs for Cleveland residents and therefore growing revenue?
Yeah. Through the council president to the councilman, I want to kind of walk you through the context of where we've been as a city and what my administration is trying to do to turn the equation around in terms of bringing more high-paying, family standing wage jobs to the city of Cleveland. As you know, we have not had a fully staffed Department of Economic Development at City Hall since 2015, about 11 years ago. When then Director McNair became my head of economic development, he prioritized, number one, fully staffing up the Department of Economic Development. But number two, historically, we were outsourcing our business attraction and retention strategy efforts to three or four organizations. Siri, GCP, Jumpstart, and Team Neo. And you know what's consistent amongst those organizations? No one was waking up every single day obsessed about calling on companies and making sure Cleveland was their first choice. So what do? Well, number one, we poached a great leader from Akron who did a lot of the work to really reimagine the Akron Chamber of Commerce, David Lucas, as our first ever Deputy Director of Business Growth. We also received a grant from Destination Cleveland and the Cleveland Foundation, and now we have a business attraction leader in Jennifer Schill. And David and Jennifer are really working on making sure we have a Cleveland-centric focus, business attraction and retention strategy. And that strategy consists of the following things. Number one, we're focused on doubling down on the key segments of the economy where Cleveland is actually winning in the global marketplace. Number one, aerospace and defense. We are home to some of the most important suppliers in the world, from Eaton to TransDigm in the aerospace and defense sector. We are home to the only NASA Research Center above the Mason-Dixon line with NASA Glenn. So how are we should be leveraging those assets and winning in the aerospace and defense sector. The other sector we're focused on, advanced manufacturing. We're building things in America again. We're building things in Ohio again. And we have a strong legacy, heritage, and strength in the manufacturing sector. So we're looking to grow and compete there. The third sector we're focused on, food manufacturing, from Orlando Bread to Cleveland Kitchen to Cantonese Foods that I just visited in Councilman Polensik's neighborhood in Collinwood. And the other sector we're focused on is making sure we continue to grow in the healthcare sector and the life sciences. Not only are we home to the Cleveland Clinic and UH, but we are home to the only quantum computer in the world solely focused on healthcare and AI at the Cleveland Clinic with IBM. And so right now we're calling on companies, we're calling on CEOs in those four key sectors. The other thing that we're doing, guess how many shovel-ready job sites we had when I took office 4 years ago to attract and retain those companies? Guess how many we had? Zero. We didn't have any. None. So when folks are saying, why did Columbus get Intel? The reason why they got Intel was they had hundreds of acres that was shovel-ready to attract that company. And even we were losing companies to Hudson, Solon, and Twinsburg because we didn't have 10 acres, 20 acres of land ready to go. So now we have the land through our site readiness fund. We have the leadership in place in the Department of Development. So we're calling on companies and prospecting companies so we can attract companies back to the city of Cleveland.
So I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, and that is really good industries to focus on. I agree with that strategy. Aerospace, food, those are good industries. I keep looking this way because Councilman Slife has my time dwindling down right here. So you started off that answer, Mr. Mayor, through the chair by talking about how you wanted to build the Department of Economic Development, and I agree that that is a good in-house application for employment at City Hall. And I also agree with you that some of our perhaps programs are best run by partners outside of City Hall, although some of them aren't also succeeding at some of their efforts, but another day. Back to my original issue, the balancing of the budget seems to happen every year based on the people we don't hire. And we can point to every single department and look at the number of hiring slots that we have for that department and then see how much money is returned back to the general fund by not hiring those people. And that is how we end up balancing the budget at the end of the year. And this is not new to your administration. This is not new to municipal finance. This is what cities all across the country do. But it gets right to the point of if we're going to in-house some of these really important economic development projects, are we going to, I'm going to get dinged for this by the media, but I did drill down on building and housing numbers, and we're up 7 over 2021. We've managed to hire 7 people in the last 5 years from what we started off in 2021 with. If we're going to in-house this stuff, but yet we're relying on not hiring to balance the budget, there seems to be a disconnect here. I'm trying to make these things gel, and I can't figure out, if we're going to hire people to do this really important work, where in the budget, because we're only making ends meet by bringing back revenue from not hiring.
Yeah, through the council president to the councilman. One, to building and housing specifically, and obviously, out of respect for my director, Sally Martin O'Toole, I want her to go in more detail. We want to hire as quickly as we possibly can. However, I will say because of the nuances between civil service and non-civil service in building and housing, it can be a bit complicated to hire faster. Right? And so we need to make some reforms in civil service in order to change that. I would say, secondly, any large enterprise, whether it's City Hall or a Fortune 500 company, is going to create some slack built in any base budgeting to give us that flexibility. I will tell you this, we don't wake up every day and say, oh, we're not gonna hire this person because we don't have the money, right? That's not our philosophy. And so you're gonna have vacancies, you're gonna have attrition. That's just the natural order of operations in any complex, large enterprise. But I will say, we are laser focused, like we've done in our safety forces, on hiring smart, capable, effective people so we continue to deliver on the mandate of high quality basic city services for our residents.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to come in under time, Mr. President. I'm just going to wrap up this way. I hope that my colleagues, as we go through this next week and a half of staring at every single department, can look for some really tough choices to make and where perhaps we don't need to invest taxpayer dollars so that we can invest in the departments that are actually revenue generating. Departments like economic development, departments like building and housing, departments that actually grow our city, bring jobs, help people live here. City services is vitally important, and I hope that we can find some ways, because we can't keep doing a budget that only balances itself based on the people we don't hire. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, you want to close the remarks?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I just want to clarify one thing. When we talk about savings on vacancies, that's savings at the end of the year that we use in supplemental to do things that we didn't have in the budget. So the budget is balanced. We're budgeting as if we're filling all of those positions throughout the year. I just want to be clear on that.
I understand the budget is balanced. I'm not saying that.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joseph Jones, Councilwoman Nikki Hudson, Councilman Richard Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor and to his administration. I've been coming to City Hall since 1978, since I was a baby. And I used to come down here oftentimes with my father. And out of all the years I've been down here and have been blessed and have had the opportunity to serve the great citizens of the First Ward, I must say that I have to give your administration a check mark on signage throughout City Hall, the sitting areas where people can sit down, the art that are on the walls has given it a new lifting, uplifting of the spirit. One of the things that has always been important to me is making sure that we have an environment where people want to come and work. An environment where they are inspired. So when I see that artwork on those walls, when I come down those halls, I'm appreciative of your administration making the necessary investments in this space here called the People's House. Because one of the things that hasn't happened, and we talked about this a couple of councils ago, this about 8 years ago, about the water dripping in on the paint, and how the great mural that's inside City Hall was having a negative portrait because of the leaking water. So I just want to thank your administration for making that investment. While we're talking about making investments, a lot of the questions that have been asked across this table this morning has dealt with, some of them, quality of life issues, and baking into this budget some of the concerns that we have and that we continue to have in our communities is safety. And we've invested a lot of money here towards safety, and we've invested a lot of money into various different programs. One of the things that I would ask, Mayor, are you open to new opportunities and new programs? For an example, as it relates to safety, we put together a Ring Doorbell program in our community to help our senior citizens. We found that those private citizens who had the Ring Doorbell camera was able to use footage and give it to the police to capture people and to bring them to justice. And so in doing so, a lot of our citizens are very happy about it. And it doesn't cost much. If we can make that kind of investment throughout the city of Cleveland, expand it in Ward 1, we can truly help our citizens stay safe, especially if all the people here who are sitting around this table who are established here and all of these seats are talking about the quality of the city of Cleveland and bringing in population. One of the most important things is citizens must feel safe. Businesses must feel safe. when we have businesses leaving the neighborhood, unfortunately, because you have a situation where they're constantly being broken into, or their vehicles are having the catalytic converters cut away from up under them. That has been a challenge for me in Ward 1. And I don't want to lose businesses, and I certainly don't want to lose citizens. So on the end of safety, this is a small part of what we have done, and I would love to work with your administration to talk about the possibility of expanding this program so not only the citizens of my neighborhood can feel safe, but citizens throughout the city of Cleveland can have a program that can truly have eyes on their properties and eyes in the streets.
Through the council president to the councilman, absolutely open to that partnership. As you know, through the work that we've done under both Safety Director Drummond's leadership and Chief Todd's leadership, we've expanded our FUSIS program that gives residents the ability to integrate their home camera or Ring doorbell camera systems and integrate that into our real-time crime center. So open to that partnership, absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. And then second, want to talk about another issue that we've kind of kicked this thing all the way down, and we just kick it year in and year out, and we kicked it a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago at a caucus meeting talking about code enforcement. Code enforcement has been a major issue for the Lee Harvard Seville Miles community, the first ward, since I started in public office in 1997, elections, and then coming into 1998. And one of the issues at that time is still the same issue that we fundamentally deal with right now, is that code enforcement is supposed to be able to say to a neighbor, okay, your shingle is down or your gutter is down, you need to fix it before it gets too bad. And as we've heard some of the testimony from Mike Polensik, it's gotten so bad that they have to have a whole tarp now put on their house. And so one of the things is that we don't have a good, consistent code enforcement process that I have been anywhere close to being excited about. And I have sat here from budget to budget and improved every single one of these budgets and listened to all of the programs about how they would expand code enforcement and haven't seen really no true action in my neighborhood. So I would like to work with your administration in partnership, something that the former or previous councilwoman had a working relationship with the director to sit down on a weekly basis to talk about code enforcement, because that's a big issue in our community. And I heard some folks say, well, we don't want code enforcement people in our neighborhood. Well, I want code enforcement people in my community, and I want to work with your administration to do it. Now, on the code enforcement side, which is really important, we're not saying, or nor are we suggesting that we go in and we beat our citizens up. We're giving them tickets and constant ticketing them. What I'm saying here is that some of those obvious spots, Mayor, that we know are absolute eyesores, we need to go in like a surgeon and deal with those issues, especially when it comes to commercial real estate in my neighborhood. We have a number of businesses that are absolutely derelict in their responsibility, and they have become an eyesore. So I really fundamentally need some help from your administration to resolve some major issues on Miles Road, some that are on South Miles, and it seems like Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, that these people just come in and think they can do whatever they want to as relates to setting up shop in our neighborhood, regardless of how bad it looks, or in some instances, regardless how disrespectful sometimes they are to our neighbors. So I would love to work with you to deal with the code enforcement issue in my community. And then, and if you have any comments on that, I'll pause before I go to the next one. First, I also want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Laird, his department, Bonnie Tewan, for the jobs that they did with one of the most coldest winters. The last time I've seen a winter this close was in 1985, 84. And then I've even heard someone talk that the winter has been as cold as since the 1960s. So we know that with such a cold winter, the men and women who went out to make sure they shoveled that snow did a great job. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for doing a great job, and I appreciate the work you did. On the issue of this being the cold winter, whenever there's a cold winter, and I know that the streets department, people like Commissioner Randy Scott probably knows this best, is that these roads now are in trouble because we've had a cold winter. Some of these roads, asphalt is not mixed and made the way they should be. And so what I'm seeing right now is as the snow has now melted, a lot of these roads, even some of the new roads that we just put in last year, are showing signs of impact. So that would mean, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, that we need to start putting more money into the streets program just to keep up with this erosion that's going on. And nothing says to the citizens more than I love you and I'm thinking about you than to get a new street, especially when their street has got chuck holes in it and causing them all kinds of damage to their cars and their vehicles. So on that end, on this here, Mr. Chairman, to the President of Cleveland City Council and to the mayor, we would like to see more money put into the roads and repair for our city streets.
Through the council president to the councilman, as you know, we have 12 million allocated in bonds for street improvement projects this year. And also in the near term, I know that Director Laird and his team will be out, particularly as the weather has broken in the last several days, out already fixing potholes. I know I sent them out to Rocky River Drive. I saw those complaints. So they've been out looking at Rocky River Drive and other parts of the city. So look, we had a rough winter. We just asked for a little patience because it's going to take our crews some time to get those pothole repairs prioritized. And then, as you know, once this budget is approved, if it is approved, we will work with all deliberate speed to get going on those short and long-term street repairs.
And one of the things, and I appreciate that, Mayor, and one of the things I just want to, because I want to get this out on the table. When I came back to Cleveland City Council in 2018, the streets program has $4 million in it. It wasn't enough for a major city of our size. And, you know, if we can get one street done for $10 million or $5 million, certainly we should have more money put into the street side program, because that is the area, Mr. President, to the mayor, where the people really feel the services coming to them. And what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor of the city of Cleveland is the program of $12 million. I've pushed over the years to have that amount move from that $4 million to $10 million, and then now $12 million. It has been succinct since the last president of Cleveland City Council, Kevin Kelly. So I agree with the previous mayor when I pushed at the table that there should be, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, at least $20 million investment into the streets program. Again, having that kind of investment helps this city maintain its existing streets and keep up with the deterioration that is happening. And it's one of those things, again, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, this is what the people are saying. This is something that they would like to see. This is something that constantly comes into our offices calling us about some streets. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, we have some streets that haven't gotten paved in 15, 20, 30, and some 40 years. And one particular case, we, thanks to your administration, we had the industrial parkway known as Johnson Parkway. That road hadn't been repaired in almost 56 years. So having that new concrete brought in certainly has made the difference. But making the vital investment into the city streets and these side streets are very important. And the suggestion is if we could get that number from 12 million to 20 million, or at least get it to 15 million, it would help to make a profound impact.
Yeah. Through the council president to the councilman, well, I don't know where we're going to get another $8 million in this budget. I'm sure that will be debated over the coming days and weeks ahead. I just want to point out a couple things. I think number one, an area, a partnership where I think we work very closely with this body is in making sure, as we got the American Rescue Plan dollars, we found 20 million of that funding for our back to basics investments, which allowed us to have more money probably than we've ever had before in terms of street repair and street improvement projects. So that was a good win for the residents through that funding stream. I would also just encourage the council that, you know, our administration would love to work with you on making sure we're coordinating any NEF dollars, casino dollars that you all are allocating, leveraging those dollars with general revenue fund dollars or existing public utility projects in the pipeline to leverage spending, right? So that we're not digging up a street more than once. If there's some synergy between, those buckets of funding, we can kind of drive more value long term, and that's one area of collaboration we can work on together.
And then, Mr. Chairman, rounding it out here and then coming to the home plate, going back to safety in terms of traffic enforcement, one of the things that has been a bane in my side is the failure of having traffic enforcement in a neighborhood on a consistent basis. And what that has caused is a lot of traffic fatalities. There have been a number of situations where cars have flipped over, ran into businesses, and I don't know what's wrong with these people today. It just seems like they're running wild, like they've lost their mind. And I'm just so thankful and appreciative, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, that my family is still alive here. And I'm sitting here at this table given the fact that my wife was driving down Target Avenue and someone was going over 100 miles an hour. Had she not had the foresight to jump up on the curb and get into the tree lawn, that car would have hit her, and the car went out of control at the end of Target and running straight into a utility pole. So I'm concerned about it. Our citizens are concerned about it. And I don't know what we can do to improve that or how we can look at this year's budget to try to do something to put traffic enforcement in our neighborhoods.
Through the council president to the councilman, well, outside of groundhog issues, speeding and traffic are the other number one issue I hear from a lot from residents across the city. I will say a couple things on the enforcement standpoint. Chief Todd continues to work with our command staff as well as the Ohio Highway Patrol on targeted traffic enforcement details on a monthly and quarterly basis in hotspots across the city. Our new stance detail also will be supporting them in those efforts, and Chief Todd can give more specifics about that during the public safety presentation and briefing. I will also say, under the leadership of my planning director and my mobility advisor, both Callie Mearsman and Matt Moss, as well under the direction of John Laird in Public Works, we have installed probably more speed tables in the history of the city and want to do that more with the support of this body long term.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Nikki Hudson, Councilman Richard Starr, Councilwoman Stephanie House-Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the Council President to the Mayor, thank you for joining us this morning. I need to follow up on some of my colleagues' questioning on the loss of the lead grant, the $3.3 million. There was a quote in a recent Cleveland.com article that said that Cleveland cannot be trusted to look out for its children. And they went on to say that the state should take over Cleveland's lead remediation program. I hope that you are as insulted and frightened by that as I am. And so my question for you is, disorganization with the lead programs in Cleveland is blamed. What is your administration doing to ensure that there is centralized leadership to guide how the money that is still out there is being spent, and to ensure that it is spent wisely and quickly?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, the buck stops with me. That central leadership rolls up to me. And so what I've done is a couple of things. Number one, I'm working already right now with Chief McNair, Dr. Margolius and Sally Martin O'Toole, and other members of my administration on really outlining what are the existing lead grants that we currently have in place, what are the internal bureaucratic hurdles undermining our ability to deploy those dollars? And how do we streamline those regulations so it's easier for us to abate these homes and get money out the door faster? Case in point, we're working right now through some bureaucratic issues we're having with our vendor implementation grant. And I know Chief McNair is working around the clock to address those. We think that can be a part of the solution long term. But what has happened, unfortunately, as we've done some digging and auditing of the Department of Community Development, is sometimes we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And we've created too much red tape, too many bureaucratic hurdles to get this money out the door faster. And so what I'm trying to do is get a good baseline of what those hurdles are, how do we streamline those regulations, and then as we have a capital left, particularly from our private sector partners at our hospital systems, as that money is deployed, how do we deploy that money so it's not caught up in red tape at City Hall, and it's focused on the hotspots that we see in the city to abate lead paint. For example, a large share, and Dr. Margolius can correct me if I'm wrong, but a large share of many of the homes that have yet to be abated are in Councilwoman Santana's ward, in Clark Fulton. And so we need to have a more focused, targeted approach to this work. I would also say the legislation we're contemplating to change with this body could go a good step in the right direction of better supporting those good landlords in Cleveland that have continuously made sure that their homes were lead cleared and lead safe certified. But again, the buck stops with me, and I'm going to need this body support and partnership to correct this wrong. I do think the executive order that we outlined several years ago was a good step in the right direction, and now it may have caused a little bit of friction with some of our external partners, and I'll own our lack of communication around that. But we need to take some urgent, focused steps, and while I don't want the state to take it over, we do want their continued partnership to right these historic wrongs, and I take full responsibility for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council president to the mayor, I appreciate you owning up to this. But you are the mayor of the city. You have a lot to do, and Chief McNair, as the new in his new role, he also has a significant amount of work to do. In the past, we've had a lead czar. Is that something that you would be looking at
through the council president to the councilwoman? We did have a lead czar, and quite frankly, it did not work. It did not work. And so, in my opinion, the best strategy will be a collection of senior members of my administration that I'm holding accountable, working in partnership with council to do this, to get it right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on, I had a good phone call with your with Chief Puente on Friday. A passion of mine is community gardens, and the benefits of community gardens reach far beyond their ability to provide fresh produce. They serve as hubs for social interaction, promote healthy lifestyles, and they contribute to environmental sustainability. Currently, they are managed under the Department of Community Development and funded with CDBG. And unfortunately, pardon the pun, in their current form, they are withering on the vine. I've spoke with Chief Puente about a plan that we've come up with to change the funding source to the general fund, and also to move the management from the Community Development Department to the Department of Health, Department of Public Health. Will you commit to me that you will allow me as a member of council to work with your administration to see this plan forward?
Through the council president, the councilwoman, open to that. Obviously, I have not been read in on that proposal and what the pros and cons are, but if there is a more seamless, faster way to execute our Sprouts program, is it the Sprouts program you're talking?
Sprout,
yeah, Summer
right.
Sprouts program. I'm open to that. And so whatever makes sense to get it done in the most efficient way, I'm open to that.
Thank you. And finally, through the council president to the mayor, I have to talk about trees. It is my activism around trees that ultimately led.
What kind of trees are we talking about? No, I'm kidding.
Urban trees. Urban trees. So we are the forest city, but unfortunately, we don't have much of a forest left. In 2018, under the leadership of former Councilman Zone, a law was passed, a tree preservation plan. They also established a tree preservation fund where developers would pay into this fund. I learned recently that although this fund was created, almost 8 years ago now, it unfortunately only has $18,000 in it, which is really abysmal considering the amount of time that the fund has been around. And I commend you on creating a standalone division of urban forestry, and I believe that is a huge step in the right direction. What I would like to know is, what is your administration doing to ensure that we are planting more trees in the city, and that we are educating all departments around the city, including utilities, to make sure that we are maintaining our urban tree canopy and continuing to, or actually really making an effort to put money into that tree preservation fund?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, well, first and foremost, we're going to continue to support our new division of urban forestry and our current tree commission. It's finally fully staffed with the full board, which is a huge step in the right direction. Secondly, we continue to prioritize getting private support and private sector grants to support us preserving our existing trees and planting more trees. There's a major grant we're looking at right now that could help us plant thousands of more trees in the east side, and more to come soon around that. And thirdly, I would say I was not aware of the tree preservation fund. So that's a great idea, and what we should consider is maybe including that as part of our CBA moving forward to incentivize developers that if they can't meet certain requirements, put some money in that fund.
Through the chair to the mayor, it's a law, and it's unfortunately just hasn't been enforced adequately over the past 8 years. And I believe, now that we have the standalone division of urban forestry, it is ripe for things to change. And finally, one final point. I know that we are not talking about the capital budget, but I just want to bring this up. I had a meeting with representatives of the CARE union, and it was brought up to me that last summer there was a unfortunate crash where a brand new fire truck, ladder truck that cost, I believe, $1.5 million, was used, as they often are, to protect the scene of another crash on the highway. And so this new fire truck was hit while it was, protecting the scene, and sustained several $100,000 damage, and then was offline for several months because of that. And so the CARE representative suggested that the city begin using designated blocker trucks for accident scenes, and which to me it makes complete sense. They could also be retrofitted retired vehicles, and so I just want to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilman Richard Starr.
No, Dev, thank you. Let me check my list right quick. First and foremost, to make sure I stand on business today. I'm not going to discuss the raccoons or groundhogs. Thank you, Mayor Bibb, for everything that you continuously do. I'm almost there. I'm trying to win this award today, since they like to clown us in the media. Hey, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I'm close. But one of the things I definitely want to say, first and foremost, thank you, Mayor, for coming to the table with your transmittal to talk about the budget, which is very important. Obviously, some of my colleagues have touched on lead. I know it's a big issue that we have to deal with in the city of Cleveland, and this problem came long before you became the mayor. And I understand as a young mayor, as a millennial leader, oftentimes the root causes of things that has been neglected for decades falls on the shoulder of you, and the expectation is set, President, that you must change everything in 4 years. Now, me and you both, we had our fair shares of agreements, disagreements, but one thing we always come to the understanding of, how do we get to the end goal? So I want to say thank you for your leadership, for just having that open line of communications that we're growing, just so we can deal with some of the issues. So I'm not going to go hard on the lead issue, but I know we got a hearing coming up, and we're going to get to some questions answered regarding this to see what we need to do to make sure this isn't about just politics, to make sure this is about the children's lives, and making sure that City Hall or any structural that we come up can actually deal with the funds that is on hand, just so we can service our residents in the city of Cleveland. So I'm going to get straight to my questions right now regarding specifically to the budget, because I wrote some down to make sure I stay on task, because I know Charlie Slife is keeping time, and that council member do not play about his time. One of the things I definitely want to talk about through the budget is, through the chair, Mr. Mayor Bibb, can you walk us through the revenue assumptions in this 2026 budget, particular income tax projection, and explain what contingency plan exists if we see a slowdown in collections?
I'll have my finance team walk through those revenue and expense assumptions. Paul and Jim.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, as stated, when we do these projections, we use a mathematical and also it's a bit of an art approach. We look at what the projection or what the revenue growth has been over several years, and then if we expect that to continue. So generally, the revenues that we budgeted last year, and you'll see this in the budget book as well, were on par. So that shows that the other than a few things here or there that outperformed, but generally they performed as we predicted, and that tends to be between about a 2.5% to 3% across the board on the revenues. So that's about where we're at this year. I mean, they vary based on revenue to revenue, but it is basically a calculation based on historical growth, and then again what we think is going to happen over the next year or several years.
Thank you, Director, for that response. But then my next question, definitely through the chair, will go to Mayor Bibb as well, or anyone at the table. When we talk about neighborhood investment versus downtown investment, which is a reality, and one of the things you spoke about, Mayor Bibb, is the facts that 60% of the revenue that is generated in the city of Cleveland happens downtown. Now, me being the millennial I am, I was trying to go downtown a week or two ago, and at late night, and it was not a scene no more. Spots that I would like to go have a nice drink and hang out is not open. 10:30, I'm trying to grab me some chicken wings. BW3s is not open. So as we prepare to do development or look to do things in downtown, we must make sure we continue to invest in those developments that are currently there. But also, how can we make sure through this budget to ensure that neighborhoods, especially historically disinvested areas like Ward 5, measurable investments, and not just citywide or downtown, focus on growth? Through the chair.
Through the council president to the councilman, I would say a few things. One, we still have a long way to go in terms of making sure we see a vibrant downtown and a vibrant urban core as we've emerged out of the pandemic. One of the things that I'm keeping a watchful eye on, and that I know I'll be talking to this council about over the next several weeks, is, we've seen a downturn in the profitability of commercial office space in the core of the city. And that's not just a Cleveland-focused issue, it's a national issue. And it's important that as these properties in the core are foreclosed on or under receivership on, that they have good, responsible investors so that those office buildings can be competitive. Because what you're seeing right now in the office market is a flight to quality. So we need good, responsible owners who are going to put the effective tenant improvements into those buildings so we can maintain and attract a workforce in the core and maintain and attract a population in the core. To your earlier points about neighborhood investments, look, I would say a couple things. I think number one, the work that we've collectively done on housing, I think is phenomenal. A majority of all the spending that we had around the American Rescue Plan was focused on housing. The Cleveland Housing Investment Fund, another tangible example of how we're trying to address the housing issues that we see in the city. And then what I've been really proud of is the work that Tom McNair has led with our new Director of Economic Development, Joe Rose Bordeaux Smalls, is around having these neighborhood investment managers decked against all 15 of our wards. So now we have localized planning and localized resources to drive investment faster, and it's a more effective way to deploy capital in our neighborhoods. So, for example, the work that we did with leveraging the Steelyard TIF funding for small business grants, the work that we've done to streamline the storefront renovation program, the work that we're doing to make sure that we reform how we dispose of land in the city. It shouldn't take years and years and years for a senior citizen who's been planting a garden, cutting the grass on a vacant lot for her to get that lot, right? We should make it easier. And so I know Chief McNair and Director of Economic Development are really focused on how do we have a more effective land disposition strategy so we can spur more neighborhood development. So all these things, I think, work together for a growth agenda that supports not just downtown, but every neighborhood across the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. And to my next point of question, definitely, because that is important as you talk about the neighborhood investment, how do we get those funds back in the neighborhood? You know, residents call my office all the time trying to figure out what is actually being done to improve housing, what has been done to improve the infrastructure and public safety. So how can we ensure that this type of investment through the budget or any type of line item that shows that we are going to make sure this budget has a direct impact on improving housing, infrastructure, and public safety in the east side neighborhoods? Is there ways that we can correlate those numbers to the actual issues in the community through the chair?
Through the council president, to the councilman, happy to work with you and your team on making sure we show a direct connection of these investments in our neighborhoods. One thing we really did well with Dr. Crow when she was leading Urban AI is we were able to show all of the ARPA funds and where they were spent in neighborhoods at the ward level. So we can disaggregate that data based on the request of council through the work of Urban AI.
Thank you. And then further along, when I talk about housing code enforcement and slum landlords, I have reached out to the law department, building and housing, as well as HUD to be able to get a meeting centralized next week to discuss some of the issues that we continuously hear, your office as well as my office, because these slum landlords and not enforcing the code is an issue. And one of the things that I think is more challenging is to make sure that we, as a council, come together with the mayor administration to be able to address these issues. And one of the things I would like to see is to make sure within this budget, how does this 2026 budget strengthen enforcement against negligent landlords? And are we fully funding prosecutors and inspectors to meet that need through the chair? Do we know what we currently have in this budget is going to be able to say we don't have repeated offenders? Are we going to have an actual list to say these are the ones who are being negligent? This is what we can go after them as far as the code. So within me asking this question, just to get it down to the right root causes, are we fully funding prosecutors and inspectors to meet that need to deal with housing code enforcement and slum landlords through the council president?
Through the council president to the councilman, I would say absolutely yes. In this budget, we have hired 5 more prosecutors, solely focused on housing code enforcement and building and housing issues. And I will say, one of the powers we collectively have as an administration and you as the council is sunlight is the best disinfectant. So we need to put these landlords on blast in the public, in the media, to hold them accountable. And the more we can do that, I think the better results we'll have long term.
Thank you. And as a point of that clarity, as well as a follow-up, public safety, deployment, and response times. Oftentimes residents call and give us different scenarios or issues they deal when they dial 911. I think the Tanisha law that Councilwoman Stephanie House Jones led is a great step in the right direction for what we need. But one of the things I want to make sure within this budget, do we have enough resources or dollars allocated to improve the response times in neighborhoods that consistently experience delays in police, fire, or EMS in responses? Do we have enough dollars to ensure that when that call comes, a resident is not being told to call their council person, or a resident is not being told that the police is at another call or they get there when they get there, and sometimes it's the next day or things? Do we have enough in the budget to ensure that we have enough police officers or first responders on board to be able to handle and address those issues through the chair?
Through the acting council president to the councilman, I would say yes. A couple of things I want to just chime in on. One, as we all know, public safety is nearly 50% of the entire general revenue fund budget, nearly 50%. We are 100% staffed in fire and 85% staffed in police and EMS. I'm going to be holding Commissioner Wheeler and Chief Todd and Director Drummond to make sure we get to 100% staffed in those departments this year. And we're always trying to get better in terms of response times. I want to echo your sentiment, and I think that the work that we're doing around Tanisha's law will allow us to enhance those response times over time. But I do believe we have what we need in this budget to continue our mandate to make Cleveland a safer city.
Yes, and I will be remiss if I do not bring a workforce as well as youth pipeline, dealing with a lot of things and challenges. I know Building Bright Futures plan, depending on the day of the week, you determine how I feel about the plan. But one of the issues that I definitely want to bring up is within that Building Bright Futures plan, we have decisions being made by individuals who have not experienced actually going into or being or attending Cleveland Public Schools. And what I mean by that is not even their children within the last 5 years. So some of that issues that we are dealing with is they're looking at numbers, but they're not really honing in the fact of what is going to happen with this Building Bright Futures plan. And one of the biggest challenges that I have, and I need your help as well as for the district to understand, when you talk about lack of investment, we see the numbers. Right now, currently, in CMSD, the third grade reading scores and early childhood literacy, only 35% of our students are proficient from third grade to fourth grade in math, reading, and writing. But 87% of them are advancing to the fourth grade. They are stuck into these K through 8 buildings where you're not finding anyone to solve that because they're getting pushed along. And as they get pushed along, they then graduate and get promoted from 8th grade to 9th grade. Now they're finally going into a different building. Now high school educator is supposed to prepare them for life. Then we have a 78% graduation rate for CMSD. And when you look at it, only 23% of our students that graduate out of that 78% are proficient or prepared for workforce, military, education. So the system that we have in place, it is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Now, the system was started and founded long before me and you was born. But as the leader that you are, and as a leader in the community that I am, we have to lock in to get CMSD to understand that we have to produce more skills for our children. So some of these initiatives in Building Bright Futures where they're taking away the horticulture program from East Tech, when they're trying to add it with just different other type of programs that don't fit the need of children from that neighborhood, we need to do everything to make sure that East Technical High School have trade initiative. We have Tri-C down the street who's willing to be able to implement a program. When I just met with Tri-C, their Western campus is not having a problem with getting students in there. Their Eastern campus is not having a problem. But when you talk about the Metro campus, which is in walking distance from East Tech, we're not utilizing them to the best of our ability. So one of the things I just need from you, Mayor, as well as your administration, is letting CMSD know, I see your Building Bright Future plan, I looked at it, but we don't want no program. We want the program that we need at East Tech is vocational trades. We have to have that in that community, in that neighborhood where you're talking about an area where the median income is $15,000. Imagine if a student graduate with the credentials to be able to go into an apprentice program and got the certification since 9th grade with working with Tri-C, and now that young man or that young woman graduate, and their little kid or their little siblings is like, yo, I want to go do I want to be an electrician. I want to get into construction. So I need your help to make sure CMSD knows, like, I hear what they're trying to accomplish, but the need of the residents in a central neighborhood at East Tech is to have vocational and trade programs at East Tech.
Through the council president to the councilman, happy to work with you on that.
Yes, and thank you. And the last thing I would definitely say, just from the budget standpoint, is one of the things that is hard for us is just to solve so much. I understand you, Mayor. You may have a day where you wake up and you plan to do 1, 2, and then them 1, 2 don't get done because 6 other things became top priority to that day. So I understand what you have to do. I enjoy working with you and your administration, but I definitely want to make sure in this term too, for us as the young millennials, because not all people like young millennials in leadership. I'll say it for those who are millennials in leadership. Some people feel as if their generation got skipped over and we haven't waited on nothing and we shouldn't be here. But that's their own perspective. That's their own belief. But when you talk about Cleveland can't wait. And working with you is the only way we can be able to get things done. We don't have to always fight. We don't have to always agree. But some things we're going to have to push back on because it's something that is needed for our residents. So I look forward to working with you. I look forward to going through these budget hearings, but I want to make sure we understand that the residents first, more important than anything that we have to deal with in the city of Cleveland. So thank you, Mayor Bear, and I yield.
All right, Councilwoman House Jones.
Well, good morning, through the chair to the team here. Good morning. So I have a couple of questions as it relates to, the budget that's at hand. And I think my first question, I'm going to start off with the mission statement. So it's listed that our mission is to inspire confidence by delivering reliable, efficient city services and creating the conditions for all members of our community to thrive. Starting from that position, how are we actually tracking and measuring those elements, right? I would say even from that mission statement, it's 3 buckets, right? Inspire confidence is 1, delivering reliable and efficient city services is 2, and then creating the conditions for all members, to have the opportunity to thrive. So how literally are we tracking that, and how are we measuring ourselves to that?
Through the council president to the councilwoman. First, if you look at our 10-year strategic plan, one of the recommendations was creating a standard set of key performance indicators across every department to measure, manage, and track that progress over time. As the saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we are in the process of actually doing that right now. Dr. Liz Crow in the Department of Urban AI is coming up with key KPIs across all of our various departments to allow us to track progress on a monthly and quarterly basis so that all of us, both the administration and council, can keep a watchful eye on those indicators and track that progress over time. Now, it is a work in progress because, as you know, 4 years ago, we inherited challenges around how do we build a data-driven culture? How do we get employees to think about data differently? How do we have better technology so we can come up with metrics and track these KPIs over time? And so it's my hope that later this year, you'll see a more formal plan and more formal KPIs that we can get feedback from this council on around those key metrics.
Okay, and thank you for that. Through the chair to the mayor, just to follow up with it, I know you said later on in the year. Later April, later October is two totally different
I will have
things.
Dr. Crow give you the update
Okay.
details on that, because I don't know
And-
the exact timing right now. I'm sorry.
Right, thank you. Through the chair to the mayor, and with that being stated, in the meantime, you're developing the KPIs. How are we supposed to track people today?
Well, I will tell you this. I have my own way of tracking progress, where I'm holding my cabinet accountable on a weekly basis. We've already started to see the material impact of KPIs. For example, in 311, they're tracking key SLAs. So that's service labor agreements. That's a common metric you see in call centers, where they're measuring call time, call quality, response time, how many tickets were closed and were opened. And so we do have some KPIs across the enterprise. What is not formalized yet, which we want to provide for this body, is KPIs in a management dashboard that's seamless and gives you that visibility on what's going on in all of our departments.
Thank you for that, through the chair to the mayor. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because more often than not, there are a lot of times it's just like, I do not know what is going on. I don't know what people do. There aren't written standard procedures where I can go to something and say, okay, where are we in this process? It's just like on any given day, people just do what they want to do. And they make it up as they go. That is my experience, and this is what I can say. And this is everything from liquor hearings, land bank, you name it. It's people do what they want to do based on the purpose. And you cannot, with this amount of activity going on, there has to be a much better way to do it. Moving on to the overall budget. So one of the things that, I know there have been conversations around our long-term financial planning. When you looked in the budget last year, our estimate for just expenses, the 2026 estimate was $824,426,886 for our expense forecast for 2026. So how do we get to today where the expense forecast is $919,997,647? I want to know what actually changed from year over year based on our forecast, because I actually went and I looked at it since I've been here for 22, 23, 24, 25, and it is very different. And so what happened over this year? Explain this to me.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilwoman, that's a great question. So that's a result of the changes in the debt program that we've done this year. So 89 million of that is a transfer to capital. So essentially we are using those funds to spend on projects to speed up the process so that we can begin on the projects immediately after council approves the CIP this year. And then we will reimburse those funds at the end of the year. So that is due to the, we had workshops with council on this in the summer, and then also discussed this at the retreat on Friday. But this is essentially the change in our program. So that 89 million is not a true expense, because we are going to reimburse ourselves. And I'm happy to have a one-on-one with you to explain. It's very complicated, and we have had conversations about that.
And so just for clarification, through the chair to the team here, what you were proposing this year had not been done in the previous 4 budgets that, again, I was a part of. I just wanted to be very, very clear, because, again, when you look at the forecast, you're like, wait a minute, something is clearly off. And if anybody is just looking at it, it's just like our math is very off, or, So just wanted to bring that point up. Through the chair to the mayor, last year I asked you, like, how do you think that Clevelanders rate us, as a city. Along those lines, because this is a people-driven business, I would have asked you, how do you think the employees of the city of Cleveland would rate our performance?
I would say satisfactory, and we have much more work to do to make this an attractable place for employees and to give confidence to the employees and the residents of Cleveland that we're delivering on the mandates they've given us. I will say that the work that we've done with this council, we've made some amazing strides to modernize this place so we can attract and retain talent, from the paid parental leave policy we passed because of your work and the work of Councilman Slife, to how we've modernized our vacation policy to attract and retain good talent, and the technology improvements that we've made for City Hall employees to do their jobs easier. And so let's not get it twisted. There were a lot of structural challenges that we had to tackle, from a lot of technical debt to outdated HR policies. We are still tracking our timesheets in many parts of our city through paper-based technologies, and our Workday investments will be a big part of changing that. We finally got DocuSign embedded in almost every department at City Hall, so now you don't have to go up to 4 or 5 different departments to get a contract signed. But we have a lot of work to do. And progress remains, and we're going to continue to make that progress together with your support and partnership.
Thank you for that. Through the chair to the mayor, as we talk about what you think as far as staff members and how they will rate our environment, how are we, from what we know to actually document it, are we surveying our employees, getting their feedback? Where is that information for people to actually say, okay, yeah, I say you satisfactory, but based on
through
their
the
input?
Yeah, through the council president to the councilwoman. I know that our head of HR, Matt Cole, will go more in detail during his budget presentation, but we are now coming up with the ability to have performance management across the entire city, where we'll have the ability to have employee feedback surveys across the entire city. And then that will give us a good indicator of employee satisfaction, and employee engagement is something that I'm very excited about getting as the mayor. One of the things that I was really proud that we did is that we kicked off the second term with the employee town hall, right? Getting feedback on what's working and what's not working, and we're going to continue to do that work as this second term continues.
All right, through the chair to the mayor, what are some of the top priorities of Cleveland City Council this year?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I would have to ask you all what your priorities are.
Okay, thank you. Other of the, you said what? No, I thank you for that. Because one of the reasons why I'm asking that question is, as a city, as a Cleveland, in order to be able to go in the same direction, people need to know each other's priorities in order to make sure there is alignment, there's real partnership, and that we can, again, assess ourselves as we're moving forward. There are other two things. Actually, this was a resident had asked me to ask the question through the chair to the mayor. Which department is in charge of managing the hospitality and entertainment districts here in the city? And will the administration develop new safety guidelines for the hospitality and entertainment districts?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, we don't have one specifically, and I think that's a major blind spot for the city. Obviously, in public health, we issue permits to make sure that our restaurants and hospitality venues are up to code. We also do that work in building and housing and public safety. But I will say, for us to continue to be a place where people want to live, work, and play, emphasize the play, we have to ensure, no pun intended, we have to ensure that we have a framework and key guidelines, so we're uplifting the entire hospitality sector in the city, and it's something that I'm very interested in working with you on and members of this body on in the future.
Absolutely. So I know I've talked about the nighttime economy team, and hopefully we can talk with Chief Minier to get through that. And then I would say finally, as many of the questions have been asked, I'm going to just circle back to our young people. I am a person that really tries to prioritize prevention. By the time you call the police, the problem has already happened. And so our investments to be preventative. One of the things year after year, we've talked about the impact ensuring that our young people have quality summer experiences, meaning summer jobs. And being on the workforce committee the past 4 years, what we know is we as a community are not investing in summer jobs, right? So that thing, what it takes to anybody who wants a summer job, that should be the one thing we as a community should be able to provide. And we are missing the mark. I guess it was, it's always talking about we need about $20 million. And we have yet to get there. And this is not necessarily the city's responsibility alone. Government is absolutely pulling its weight when it comes to investing in our summer youth experiences and summer job performances. And so I guess just my question is, what do you think it is going to take to get private industry in particularly to invest and at least ensuring that every young person in the city of Cleveland gets a summer job, to that 20 million mark? Because right now, I think last year, the private sector only contributed about 1.5 million or so.
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I think collectively as an administration and as council, we should continue to find creative ways to put pressure on the private sector to do more than their fair share, to invest in YLU and year-round, not just summer, but year-round employment opportunities for our young people. So I would gladly welcome a partnership with this body to make sure we're holding the private sector accountable to do just that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Austin Davis.
There we go. Hey, hi, Mayor. Thanks for joining us today. Before I begin, I do want to give some flowers to some great members of your staff who have been incredibly helpful during my transition to this new role. And I got to say, first of all, Director Laird has done amazing work. Director, wherever you are, that pothole, the sinkhole on 18th Street is getting repaired as we speak. I reached out to him last night at 10 p.m., and here we are, staff already on the ground. Marty Keene, Director Keene, has been incredible, especially during that power outage last month. The rapid response, the on-the-ground, hands-on activity was incredible, and I'm so grateful for that because it was a tough time for a select number of people. And Dr. Margolius has done incredible work. 6 out of 7 folks were housed from the Fairview Gardens, Fairview Park encampment there. It has made a big difference for the neighborhood. He was out there in 5-degree weather with me, taking down tents that were abandoned by folks, and it means a lot to the community. So to them and to all the staff that's doing so much of the work on the ground, the crews that are working overtime, it's been really, I'm so grateful for everyone's support for Ward 7. My big priority, to echo my colleague Councilman Jones, is traffic calming. It's what we heard a ton on the campaign. It's what we hear all the time in the community. So I guess I'll ask 2 questions. Is the short, medium, and long-term plans for funding this really important activity? What's on your mind? I know it's a matter of capital to build these things, and it's a matter of labor to build these things. So I think Director Laird just talked about some contract to bring in some external help to really support this effort. I would love to hear more about that. And then from your perspective, is there space or is there a need for a single front door for all of these Vision Zero activities around roundabouts and speed tables, curb extensions, raised crosswalks? I've heard rumors of a Department of Transportation, and I'd love to explore that more with you.
Through the council president to the councilman, first, I would say, I think collectively, through the support of this council, we've done some great job together over the last 4 years to prioritize short-term traffic improvements that yield long-term value. The fact that we were able to get hundreds and hundreds of new speed tables up in wards all across the city in a short amount of time, I think is a key part of the progress that we made collectively together. And moving forward, Director John Laird in Public Works will now be in charge of deploying those speed tables across the city, and I know he's looking at more efficient, innovative ways to get those speed tables deployed quickly in our neighborhoods. Secondly, to your question about a new Department of Transportation, At this stage, I am not inclined to create more bureaucracy or more departments. But if this council has additional ways to improve how we address traffic improvements and how we can improve the customer experience for our residents, we'll welcome those suggestions.
Beautiful. Through the chair, always looking for new ways to make this easier, the easy things easier.
Yep.
One of my observations from this budget is our labor costs are in the low 70s relative to the rest of the general fund, and compared to Columbus or Cincinnati, this is actually pretty favorable. They spend more on labor as part of the general fund. That seems like a healthy thing for us, that we're really investing in the other parts of the mission, the tools that help our incredible workforce do the really important jobs they have to do every day. That we're as a former City Hall staffer, I love this. Is really important to me personally, and it also makes a big difference for folks on the ground when those City Hall staffers are showing up with, the training and the software and the physical infrastructure necessary to do these jobs. And so I guess I'd add, you mentioned permits, DocuSign, Workday with HR, budget software, Salesforce for grants. This is all good stuff and stuff that should have been done ages ago. I'm glad we're getting to it. What's next? What are we looking at, for modernizing this year and beyond?
Through the council president to the councilman, I think the laundry list you've outlined is enough for right now. We have to land these planes. Not only the big planes that we all have collectively talked about throughout today's budget presentation, from the work we're doing in neighborhoods to the work we're doing on our waterfronts to our airport project, but landing the planes internally to make City Hall a more modern and responsive place. In no way can we declare mission accomplished. This work is still a work in progress, but from Workday to Salesforce to DocuSign, we have a lot more work to do to make sure we have modern systems to support our people, to enhance our culture, and to make sure that City Hall can move at the speed of trust and move at the speed of business.
Fair enough. Through the chair, always looking for new ways to increase trust through more techy tools. Sign me up. Really, to echo my colleague, Councilman Harsh, about some of the departments and divisions that bring in revenue. I am glad to see more investments in B&H and economic development. I'll add EMS as well, of course. Generates more revenue than other departments do, divisions do. You got to spend money to make money sometimes, and I'll never be afraid to put our money towards the necessary services that can also bring in more money to spread to areas that can't provide that kind of revenue generation. Just reference two things. One, the receivership program for the big multifamilies in Shaker Square seems like a huge success. Would love to find ways to continue to invest in that. You can imagine Ohio City Victorians that have fallen on hard times that could also return a profit for the city if we engaged. And then CPP, of course. I would love to explore, this is not a this year necessarily item, but creative financing mechanisms so that we can invest in our infrastructure, our public infrastructure, neighborhood TIFs, other things. Power reliability is really important. It's the thing that makes everything else work in our community. And Chief McNair and I had a quick conversation on this subject a while ago, just spitballing ideas. It's something I'm very interested in. We need more money to fund our infrastructure, and I think on the near west side we can find it in some interesting ways. So let's find some. Great. And by the same token, I think high quality services, the kind that Cleveland deserves, that we're all working to deliver, might require reducing our footprint in order to invest in the things that are important to us. I think of the pools that I think my residents in the near west side in particular would be interested in. If we close half the pools, if the other half are open for twice the amount of time, that would be reliable, predictable, and provide high quality pool service, we would be interested in that. Director Nichols, I think I saw you over there. It's a topic that comes up. So as we continue, I know this conversation is really focused on CMSD when we talk about reducing our footprint, but there's other assets here in the city. Let's explore.
Yeah, through the council president to the councilman, I know that Director Nichols and Jamie DeRosa in the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects and Chief Tewin as my COO, we're trying to execute against the master plan that we got support from this body to deliver on. And we're going to need the continued support of this council to make sure that we are managing the right footprint, and we have the right footprint for our existing needs across the entire city.
Two last things, as I mentioned CMSD. I should have mentioned this before too, in praising Director Laird. Last week, there was a Tremont Montessori re-envisioning session, which went really well. Trudy organized it, emceed it. 3 people came up to me and praised our snow removal program, which you don't expect to get praise for the snow removal in the midst of a record winter, but people were grateful. I was heartened to see it. I want to pass that along. But Tremont Montessori is important to the neighborhood. You were there for the town hall. It's a cool old building that needs a lot of love. I understand why it's closing, but it's also tough, living in the neighborhood and having our walkable public school shut down. So anything we can do to ensure that we're enhancing neighborhood vitality through, high quality amenities there. The partnership here. I mean, sign us up, sign me up. We need to invest in that space because there's nothing like it.
I would say through the council president to the councilman, I think number one, making sure that members of council are showing up to those community town hall conversations about building brighter futures and how we're going to reimagine those assets is the first thing that we need, making sure your residents show up as well. And then 2, I want to work with you to make sure that once we collectively define a good use for those properties, that we are leveraging our collective resources as an administration and as a council to ensure it's meeting the needs of your wards.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Really excited about the potential there. I'll just keep throwing it out. Grocery store. Yeah. Neighborhood could use a grocery store.
Great.
Last thing is, and this is really quick, when are we closing Burke?
More to come soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, through the chair.
Thank you, Councilman. We have Councilman Shaw, Councilwoman Deborah Gray, and then Councilman Brian Casey to close us out. Then, just so everybody can know in the listening audience, we're going to break just for a moment after the mayor's transmittal, and then we'll come back with the finance director's statement. So, Councilman Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you to the mayor and to his whole team and everybody that's been contributing to make sure our city is running. We appreciate your time, and we see the labor that you do and put in. I want to echo some of the comments my colleagues have already made, and I'm going to try my best not to go over things we've already covered. But as many of you know, we're coming off of an election year. We knocked a lot of doors. We were on a lot of porches. And going back to what Councilman Plencic said, it's looking rough out there. Things are really bad. And I don't think anybody in here, this is news for y'all, right? My question through the chair to the mayor is, I heard you talk a little bit earlier about making strategic calculated bets. A good chunk of our budget, I understand, is the day-to-day of what our city needs. I want to understand, in this budget, what are the strategic calculated bets that you're making that you want to see pay off? Because these are the things that what I'm hoping to do is to hold not just you, but the administration and the city accountable on over the next year as we go through. So I want to understand what are those bets that we're making?
Through the council president to the councilman, I want to point out kind of 3 areas where I think this budget is really focused on to meet some of the concerns that you heard during the campaign trail and that I hear as well every day as mayor. I think number 1, to your comments about it being hard out here, I couldn't agree more. We are living in a nation and in an economy where there's an affordability crisis. And while Cleveland is still relatively affordable, too many residents in our city have too much a month and not enough money. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is make Cleveland a more attractable place for companies and for good paying jobs. And so I talked a lot about the work we're doing in our Department of Development, where we have 6 brand new positions, all focused on job creation, business attraction, and retention, because the best thing we can do for your ward and all 14 other wards across the entire city is making sure companies are expanding here or choosing Cleveland as a place to call home. Secondly, housing. Not only are we laser focused on reforming and modernizing how we get home repair and home rehab dollars out faster for our residents so they can age in place and retire and live with dignity, but we are rapidly focused on making sure Cleveland is one of the best markets for affordable and workforce housing. So the work that we're doing around our housing investment fund is a key part of that. The goal with that fund is to create roughly 5,000 more units of affordable workforce and market rate housing over the next decade. I would also say, and I want to just applaud Councilman Harsh for his amazing leadership. He and I talked over the weekend. One of the big bets we're making is around modular. And we think not only is this a jobs play, but an amazing housing play, because we have the ability to attract a globally renowned housing manufacturer to Cleveland who can bring their company headquarters here, a manufacturing plant here, which has the potential to create up to 200 good paying jobs, right? But also we have the ability to rapidly accelerate the creation of more affordable housing in our neighborhoods, particularly in middle neighborhoods across the city. The last thing I would say is around safety. If Cleveland is not seen as a safe place to live, a safe place to work, and a safe place to play, none of this works. And so this budget is solely focused on jobs and creating an economy where we have more high quality, attractive, high wage jobs. It's focused on housing, ensuring that we are rapidly scaling up the production of affordable and workforce housing. And lastly, but more importantly, safety, safety, safety.
I appreciate the mayor walking us through that through the chair. I wanted to touch on a couple of different points as regarding those calculated bets that we're making. The first one, development. I don't think it's any secret that I have a different viewpoint of how I believe our economy should be run and what I want government to do. To that end, I have lots of reservations about trying to attract corporations and jobs here, because at the end of the day, we know they're not coming here to make our residents' lives better. They're coming here to make more money. And that, to me, is not the way that we're going to be able to actually attract more people here. We're going to have to make investments in our neighborhoods. And I know there's this age-old debate between downtown and neighborhoods, but I firmly believe that if we make our residents' lives better that are already living here, that will be the way we get more people to move here. It is not by attracting folks that don't currently live here, but how can we actually make the people who are already here lives better? And I think I want to see more of those investments in not just housing, but also food accessibility. I wanted to touch on that second point for food accessibility as well. As how do you imagine, and where's the budget talking about increasing food accessibility? Because we see lots of food apartheid areas in our city.
Yeah. Through the council president to the councilman, I would welcome a long, thoughtful conversation about the free market economy and the merits and the pros and cons of free market capitalism. But let me be clear about something. A majority, 60% of the revenue that funds public safety, that funds home repair, home rehab, that funds fixing the potholes in your ward are funded by the municipal income tax. So that means companies like Cleveland Clinic, Sherwin-Williams, Key Bank, those firms are supporting the city of Cleveland. And so if we aren't creating the conditions for good quality job creation, then that's gonna give us less money to fund the things that you and I both wanna fund. So for example, I do believe there is a case to make that we should be doing more to address food insecurity and food accessibility throughout the entire city of Cleveland. I was just talking to the mayor of Atlanta, and they have a great model, which I think could be a great model here in Cleveland, where the city of Cleveland, city of Atlanta rather, owns the land where they attracted a new grocery store downtown. They gave them a de-escalating set of investments to operate over 3 years. And because of that, they were able to attract a high quality grocery store to downtown Atlanta, which was a food desert, right? Those are things we should be exploring in Cleveland to attract good high quality grocery store operators. Now, I would also say, and we've done this in past years' budgets, we gotta support our existing grocery stores too. We've given direct grants to Heinen's and Dave's, so they are staying in the city of Cleveland. So we just can't neglect our mom and pop local grocery store operators. We got to do all of the above to really address the food issues that we see throughout the entire city of Cleveland.
I appreciate that. And just regarding the job creation and the companies, right? Once again, I hear you on the 60%. What I'll just say is that 100% of the labor for Northeast Ohio comes out of Cleveland, right? The engine of the economic engine is Cleveland, and it's the people that live here. It is not the corporations, it's the people.
I want everybody in our region to love our city, to invest in our city, and be a part of this city.
And I appreciate just through the chair to the mayor, last touch on the housing piece. We've talked a lot about home repair programs. Absolutely believe we need more of those. I also want to see something being done for tenant protections. Majority of our residents actually are renters. They're not homeowners. I believe it's close to 60% now for the city of Cleveland. And we've seen a lot of other cities have success when they create a tenant protection watchdog, some sort of an office or a program that is making sure that tenant concerns are being heard and are being channeled through the right avenues in the city hall. Is that something that you're willing to commit to?
Open to those conversations through council presidents and councilmen. I know in our American Rescue Plan funding, we gave about $1 million or $2 million to a tenants' rights organization. I don't know those details.
My understanding is that the tenant organizing portion of that money has not been spent down.
Yeah. I can't discuss the merits of that, but open to whatever council may have in terms of those ideas to support those concerns, but also to continue to enhance residents first, which goes a long way to addressing those concerns as well too.
Yeah, and I would just point to Kansas City is a city that is having a lot of success in protecting their tenants, and they have a tenant protection watchdog, and they've been able to successfully advocate for these things. You know, we don't have a tenants organization anymore. That's something I am hoping we can change over the next year or two. But what we can do in City Hall, I believe there's ways we can look out for tenants more. And with that, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We have Councilwoman Deborah Gray and then Councilman Brian Casey to close us out.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor, for coming today and your team. I just have a few points that I want to touch on, which everyone else have already touched on, but we all have our personal concerns about our particular ward and our constituents. So I want to point on, my first one, I want to point on code enforcement. That is a huge concern that came to my attention just over the past year of me also campaigning, listening and seeing more of the deplorable buildings that are owned by millionaire slum owners, as you are aware of Shaker Square. I want to thank you for pointing that out, of the fight that we went through the last 4 years on Shaker Square and have been successful, and also working through some other layers of final decision pertaining to that. So I want to thank you for pointing that out. But also, by me listening to your point of how you're going to address more to that with the code enforcement of the TINA building housing, from what I have experienced currently now, that's something that really needs to be more invested in. I want to say this, I want to applaud our director, Martin O'Toole. She had worked with me tremendously of dealing with a lot of other stuff that I have seen in the ward. But how much more of this code enforcement team in building housing can oversee and provide better services of these old buildings that have been sitting around for years and nothing has been done with that? What other type of investment can come from building housing to be successful of forcing them, for the code enforcers, to force them to maintain the building and or to come up with some type of better program for them to financially take care of it? If you understand the question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
through the council president to the councilwoman. First and foremost, I do believe that the strategy that we've built around Residents First is the right strategy, and this budget continues to support additional investments to operationalize and effectively execute Residents First. But for Residents First, we wouldn't have got that $20 million win in your award. And then I would also say the hiring of the additional prosecutors, as well as the continued enforcement that we have under Dave Roberts' leadership, to me are the right tools we need to continue to address this issue.
Thank you for that answer. But also, moving forward with this, with the code enforcers that come out to, to inspect these buildings, are they inspected pertaining to like, even though we have Resident First, we still have a lot of problems with the lead safe, pertaining to the code enforcers. Are they checking into that? Are they checking into the code violations, dealing with Resident First? We still have a lot of problems with that. And budget-wise, I know I'm beating this with a dead horse, but however, budget-wise, this is just a criminal situation to deal with this situation, that has not been resolved. And I know you inherited. We did too. However, this is, this is a huge factor for me dealing with more of the areas that I inherited, and I see more of the same problems that I have dealt with in the Shaker area that I'm now seeing in the new areas that I have inherited. So that's why I'm beating a dead horse, and hopefully that, I'm hoping that building housing can be more invested budget-wise, to deal with this situation.
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I couldn't agree with you more. We got to keep hitting the pavement and doing things like we've done creatively, like working with Fannie Mae to make sure that that auction does not go to a greedy, bad owner or receiver, and using pressure in the public. As I said before, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And the more we can do as a city, between the council and the administration, on putting these landlords on blast in the public eye, we're going to be more effective in addressing that long term.
Okay, thank you for that. And then also, you brought up something pertaining to the budget of jobs creation for our youth. How can, we know a lot of the youth, Chair to the Mayor, we know a lot of the youth are looking for jobs, but how can youth that have no job experience, no idea of what they want and where they want to, and what they want to do, how can you invest into these retail businesses that you are providing these grants and the funding that you put into retail? How can we extend on getting the youth into these programs so they can get hired, with the new retail businesses from the Steel Yard TIF program, from the Southeast Side, program that you invested in, per se?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I can't speak specifically to the workforce training programs of every small business in Cleveland, but I will say a couple things. I think number one, we want to continue with your support to invest in YOU, Youth Opportunities Unlimited. Number two, I know that Michelle Pomerantz, my Chief of Education, and Michelle Rose, who leads Greater Cleveland Works, are continuing to have productive conversations about making sure there are more apprenticeship and internship programs readily available for youth year-round. And I will say, and I want to just applaud this council for your support and partnership around the workforce investment program we did for jobs in the built environment through Cleveland Builds. That program is employing Cleveland residents from Cleveland schools to take the jobs of the future, particularly in the building trades. And so that's a great example of what good collaboration and good partnership looks like.
Thank you for that. But I also want to shout out, I want to echo you on this. In the new Ward 3, we do have Envision Cleveland, which is apprenticeship program, as you're aware of. We also have digital and construction, another apprenticeship program that's in the new Ward 3. That's on 140th and Kinsmer. Cleveland Visions is on 137th and Kinsmer. And I also myself created the job beautification program 3 years ago through the funding to implement that every summer for the for the youth to work every summer in Ward 4, which is now the new Ward 3. But we need to continue to figure out how we can fund our youth so they can have all different type of experience in different type of other areas, through your budgeting program. So I just want to end with that.
Thank you, and I'll be remiss if we didn't also thank Director Griffin for his efforts around putting those in place as well. So I know that Director Martin and Director Griffin have been working in tandem on that, so thank you, appreciate that. All right, last but not least, Councilman Brian Casey, to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for being here today, Mr. Mayor. First, I have just a couple of brief comments about things that have been said here today. Then I got some questions regarding the budget. LED grant, we're kind of experiencing that same thing with CDBG dollars, where the city is making it more restrictive to get the CDBG dollars out the door than the federal guidelines are. Structurally balanced budget, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor. It's not structurally balanced. I understand it's balanced. It's not structurally balanced because we're fronting the $90 million up front for capital projects that we don't know what capital projects we're going to, at least this side of the table does not know what capital projects yet. But what happens if we spend the money on the capital projects and we're not able to be reimbursed through a grant or whichever form that you feel that we're going to be reimbursed? Then we've funded capital projects and we have no way to reimburse ourselves. Mr. President, to CFO.
Yep, so through the council president to the councilman, that's a great question. We plan to do a bond deal at the end of the year. So this again is the change in the borrowing program to the city, that we no longer borrow up front for projects and then spend down. This has been a topic and a concern of council for a long time, spending down the funds after we've borrowed. So at this point, we are only going to borrow after we go out and execute contracts. In order for us not to have a mechanism to reimburse ourselves at the end of the year, literally the capital markets would have to be not functioning, the bond markets, and we wouldn't be able to sell our bonds. So that would be a catastrophic event. So I don't foresee that. We had this program, and several other cities have this program when I was in Florida about reimbursing yourself. And to the mayor's point about keeping a $68 million liability off the books, we did that by not borrowing the full amount of the CIP projects last year. So, this in the long run is going to save the city money. But to the point of your question, it would have to be a catastrophic event for us not to be able to reimburse ourselves through the markets.
But Mr. President, to the CFO, but there is a possibility that we are taking, although maybe minute, a risk in upfronting the $90 million and possibly maybe not being able to get bonds later on for it. That's a possibility, correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, I mean, you could come up with any scenario that could potentially happen.
This is the one I'm talking about.
Again, when you assess the risk, it's entirely, it's minuscule. The entire capital markets would have to be like illiquid for us not to be able to sell our bonds.
Okay.
And even if we couldn't sell the bonds, there's other mechanisms we could use to reimburse ourselves.
All right. Mr. President, to the mayor, you had mentioned a lot about housing today. In July of 2021, you made a statement that you were going to evict Holden Weiss. And now that we have a new housing court judge, I'm wondering if you believe that it will be a quicker process to try to deal with the Holton Weisses of the world?
Through the council president, the councilman, I believe so. I believe with our new housing court judge and the work that we've done under Mark Griffin's leadership with Dave Roberts and Sally Martin O'Toole, we'll have better tools to hold these folks accountable.
Okay. Now, if I could move into the actual budget from the mayor's office. Every year we get, Mr. Council President, the mayor, we get a transfer order. And the money's moved around, and we're always told that it's usually coming from positions that we have not filled, okay? And looking at the staffing level in the mayor's office, you have 19 special assistants to the mayor and 5 executive assistants. But then throughout the book, you have at least an additional 9 executive assistants to the mayors, which brings it about 30 executive assistants to the mayor. Mr. President, to the mayor, is that an overreach? Are 30 executive assistants to the mayor, 1, fully staffed, and 2, is that too many?
Through the council president to the councilman, I know that my deputy chief of staff will be presenting the mayor's office budget after this hearing. Okay. But I will say this, as you heard in my opening comments and throughout the Q&A today, we have a laundry list of critical priorities that we need to execute against, particularly in the second term. And so we want to make sure we have the adequate staff and leadership in place to meet the mandates of council and meet the mandates of our residents.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor, last thing I'd like to touch on is travel from the mayor's office. Last year, you alone took over 13 trips, over 46 days you were traveling, and I understand that because you're out there selling the city, doing what you can to bring the city back. And even though you spent over $35,000, the mayor's office in general stayed under budget for the $60,000 that was allocated. So good job on that. But my question is the mayor detail with the travel dates, which has come to more than $83,000. So where in the budget, Mr. Chair or Council President, to the CFO, does the mayor's detail come out of travel?
Through the council president to the councilman,
or to the mayor.
It comes through public safety, and any questions related to my safety or security, I will relay those to the chief of police.
Okay, so just know that when we do hear public safety, right, the budget for police travel is only $200,000 a year, and the Office of Public Safety is only $66,000 a year. So I guess we'll address those situations when public safety comes up. Aside from that, Mr. Mayor, Council President to the Mayor, you had mentioned about downtown being the core of the city as far as economic engine and development, but we also have a lot of other neighborhoods that don't look as pretty as downtown, but are still economic engines. My ward alone, we have 25% of the city's industry, right?
Yep.
It's huge.
Yep.
And it doesn't have a front door to it, right? It's got a bunch of side doors and a couple of windows to get to, but we should look at also investing in those industrial parkways that we have, throughout the city as well, because even though downtown and Sherwin-Williams and the clinic and all that produce the big ones, it's the blue collar, 9 to 5 people who get up and sweat every morning that keep the city afloat.
Through the council president to the councilman, I couldn't agree with you more. I visited several companies in your ward. I know we brought I think a large cemetery-based company to your ward a couple of years ago.
Underground condominiums, as I like to say.
But not only in your ward, but Lee Harvard has a lot of industrial-based companies there too. And so one of the big reasons why we brought on David Lucas is to make sure we have somebody at City Hall talking to those companies, asking them what they need, how can they expand, and then how do we take a lot of these underutilized industrial lands and vacant parcels in our city, in our neighborhoods, and make them jobs hubs. And that's a big part of our strategy around the site readiness fund for good jobs.
All right, and the last thing, Mr. President, I'd like to bring up to the mayor is obviously, and I've been screaming this since at least 2016 or 17, and that's Cleveland Public Power.
Yep.
Right? Since before ARPA, we have been saying that we need to invest in Cleveland Public Power. And we hadn't raised rates in well over 40 years because it's such a huge asset to the residents of the city of Cleveland. We haven't been presented yet with the capital projects, so I'm hoping that when we get presented with the capital projects, we finally are going to see some investment in Cleveland Public Power from the administration.
Yeah, through the council president to the councilman, I couldn't agree with you more, particularly as we're seeing this federal retrenchment from investments in clean energy and clean air, and making sure we are modernizing assets like CPP. I will say a couple things. Number one, I've instructed Director Martin Keene and my COO, Bonnie Tewan, to give me a business plan for how we continue to modernize and upgrade CPP. Once I get that plan, I'd love to work with you and the Utilities Commission and Council to really get alignment on that and identify how we can kind of work together around that. And then secondly, I think we gotta look outside the box in terms of additional CapEx investments we can procure to modernize CPP, and I'm willing to work with you on that.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Once again, Mayor, thank you for spending time this morning. I know that we'll be hearing from the rest of your directors in cabinet. Once again, we're going to adjourn for lunch. I'd ask everybody to return back at 1:15 with the finance director's statement. This committee is adjourned to that time. Thank you.